Good. Good. Tired. I'm exhausted. Going back to work is a lot. And Paige is excited to go back to school. She's so happy. Look, I can go to school. No. It stinks. But he tested negative. Oh. Stinks. Yeah, because Paige, she only tested, Paige had 0, but she still tested positive. Isn't that crazy? Oh, I didn't know. I'm using little girls' room. I'll be right back.
And are you ready? Okay, thank you. I'll just wait till Jen sits down. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular board meeting, Marlboro Township Board of Education at Memorial Middle School, December 21st, 2021, 7 p.m. Vin, can you please call roll call?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Roll call vote. Mrs. Amster? Here. Mrs. Branch? Mrs. Branch is here. Mr. Ferlin?
Here.
Here.
Dr. Heller?
Here. Here.
Mr. Schifrinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
I don't know if you're good. You gotta turn this.
You have to turn on the mics. There's a button on top or the bottom.
Switch thing. Here. There you go. Thanks.
Mrs. Salachi?
Here.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Here.
And Mrs. Wolf?
Here, thank you very much. Sunshine Law. Please be advised that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975 Sunshine Law, and that adequate notice of the date, time, and agenda has been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the news transcript, and has been posted and filed with the Marlboro Township Clerk. Copies have also been sent to each school district and other area newspapers in accordance with the law. I'm not going to read in full, but I will bring your attention to statement of videotaping of public portion of Board of Education meetings, public comment statement, no smoking on school grounds. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag of the United
States of America and to the republic
for which
which
it
stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. And we're going to remain standing and doing a moment of silence in memory of Mrs. Sandra Percy, a retired teacher who passed away on Friday, December 3rd, 2021. Mrs. Percy taught for almost 30 years in Marlboro. She started her career in the schoolhouse on Route 79, where she taught first grade. She then taught at Central School, which is now DeFino, while Mr. DeFino was superintendent. She eventually moved to Dugan and acted as building principal until a principal was appointed, and there she taught fifth grade until she retired. Her daughter, Allison Hartman, recalls when as a child going shopping in the area and never being able to walk 5 feet without running into a parent or student who loved her mother. They would tell Allison how wonderful she was and talk for the longest time. If everyone could just remain standing for a moment. Thank you, and thank you, Allison, and our condolences on behalf of the Marlboro community on the loss of her mother and Mrs. Percy's entire family. We're going to move to our student impact. Mr. Balloon, do you want to talk about it while I get it ready?
Sure, thank you. Since the start of the 21-22 academic year, technology courses at both middle schools have been providing students opportunities to engage in projects that build on 21st century skills, so students are able to successfully navigate various technology platforms and digital tools as responsible digital citizens. Through exploration and research, projects foster collaborative, creative problem solving, and critical thinking skills that nurture lifelong learning as students discover interests and potential career paths. We've prepared a short video for you. Mr. Reiner, if you can cue that up on the screen to just demonstrate what they're working on.
At Marlboro Memorial Middle School, Miss Krista Persico digital design classes are using Adobe Illustrator, a professional level program that truly puts them in the realm of real designers. Students are able to use these tools to create and tell a digital story. However, there is a lot to learn. Through collaboration, grappling, and problem solving, students learn how to navigate this expert level platform and use tools to create their own designs, including mandalas and music album covers.
Marlboro Middle School 7th grade students in Mrs. Amy Morgan's Applied Technology class used Google Earth and WeVideo to create a virtual field trip to Paris. This project was able to support students' creativity and help expand their worldview. Furthermore, students applied video editing techniques purposefully to engage the audience, such as including images, text, narration, and transitions. Students then made further revisions by considering feedback in order to publish their final video for other students to explore.
My favorite part of creating this project was adding all the facts in and doing the voiceovers. We also used Google Earth because you could literally walk around Paris, see every single little detail about it. It's just really fun to edit on it for the project.
I think you can also explore with it. It also it also opens your mind.
Yeah, we use WeVideo in the future projects because it's a really easy thing to use and works really well, especially.
Students then made further revisions by considering feedback in order to publish their final video for other students to explore.
Mr. Kyle Clayton's engineering and design students at Marlboro Memorial Middle School were challenged to design or redesign something that could benefit the school, will help someone in need, or have a positive impact on the world. Free of constraints, students were able to ideate, design, and build a prototype about something that fuels their passion. After following the engineering and design process, students presented their ideas to their classmates for feedback, which they used for further reflection and revision for improvement.
That was great. Oh, that was so cool.
Thank you so much.
At Marlboro Memorial Middle School, Miss Krista Persico digital design classes are using Adobe Illustrator.
Okay, thank you so much to Ms. Persico, Ms. Morgan, and Mr. Clayton's classes. Amazing things going on in the technology department, and the classes are great. I love so many of those designs, and hopefully one day we'll see some of these really come to life. Okay, Dr. Hibbs, do we have any announcements?
No, he doesn't. Right, you do.
Sorry, Mrs. Wolf. Absolutely. I wanted to take a second.
No.
There we go. Now I'm on. Hello, good evening. I wanted to take a second and really just thank a couple people. I wanted to thank Robin and Steve and Paul for their service. Paul, you've been with us the shortest amount of time, but it's been a pleasure to get to know you as a person. And I want to just talk for a sec about the years that Robin and Steve have really put forth to the Board of Education and the constant support and advocacy for the children of Marlboro. And, you know, in that time frame, we've done some really amazing things, such as full day K, putting an ESIP, which saved the district millions and millions of dollars, numerous projects throughout the entire district, tech initiatives, which really enabled our kids to be where they are today, technology-wise. COVID, we all know what COVID is, and you've been such a support in that time frame. And really, again, just being such child advocates, all the while supporting the board and our staff. So I want to thank you from everybody that works at MTPS for just your time, your effort, your energy. Robin, you have, I've talked to you way more than a lot of other people in my life for the past 3 years. So thank you very much for being such an incredible support and board president, and always pressing and pushing and asking good hard questions. Steve, thank you for the so many years of service that you've given to Marlboro in different capacities. You truly have been an amazing resource and a great part of Marlboro. So thank you so much from everybody here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hibbs. And on that note, I just want to say happy holidays and happy New Year to all. I'm home due to, I had some small surgery, so I need to be at home. It's hard to believe that 7 years have gone by. These last 2 years have certainly been the most interesting of all. I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who has supported me over the last few years. I want to thank my family for allowing me the time to dedicate to the Marlboro community. The hours that were taken away from being with you to work on something for the Board of Ed can never be replaced. Thank you for giving me that time. To my older son, I want to apologize for all of the community members out there who wrote negative things on Facebook that you had to read. The lesson in this, as you already know, is don't believe everything you read on social media. Do your own research, ask questions, and inquire in an appropriate manner when you see something that you are unsure about. I want to thank the administrators and staff for all you do for the students of Marlboro. Many times your work goes unnoticed. I hope that you have felt recognized and appreciated over the last 7 years. Dr. Hibbs, I want to thank you for the endless debates and conversations about many topics over the years. What people don't see is our multitude of discussions on a variety of topics. I never felt it was beneficial to fight in public. We were always able to come to a good place. You are an amazing advocate of the Marlboro schools, your teachers, and your administrators. I can say with certainty, as I have seen many superintendents in my over 20 years as a teacher, that there are not many superintendents that are as dedicated to a district as you are. On behalf of the Marlboro community, I want to thank you. To Michael, Dana, Vinny, Liz, Paul, Chris, and so many more, it has been great getting to work with all of you. Thanks for everything you do for the school district. To the educators of Marlboro, thank you for your dedication to the Marlboro community. You are with the children each and every day. You go above and beyond for this community. I appreciate all of your support over the last 7 years. To my BOE colleagues, the ones that are still here and the ones that have moved on, thank you for support and constant involvement. Steve, thank you for your many years of service to the Marlboro community. It was a pleasure to serve on this board with you. Your knowledge is amazing. Paul, thank you for serving during this very difficult time and for putting yourself out there. It has been so nice getting to know you. Randy, thanks for being a fantastic vice president and for our many, many conversations. I would like to thank Mark and Joe for always being there to answer any questions, and I have had a lot. Being a Board of Ed member can be a thankless position. I was honored to serve as your president for the last 4 years. I appreciated all the feedback, the conversations, and all the questions. We have had many great things happen over the last 7 years, and I was proud to serve on this board with each and every one of you. You asked great questions, you fought for things that you believed in, you did and continued to do the best for our students. Best of luck to you all in the future, and always stick to your beliefs. What I have found most interesting over the years is the negative tone that many people in our community have. They often use social media to express their thoughts, but many have never approached us just to sit down and talk. It is much easier to sit behind a computer and write negative things. If our children behaved as some in our community have, we would have many harassment, intimidation, and bullying cases. I understand that we all have different views, but what I can't understand is the disrespect some people can have. Many lessons can be taught from behavior. Try to look for the good. Things are not always so bad. I could not and never will live my life always looking for the negative in any situation. In regards to asking questions about what the Board of Ed is voting on, I have always felt it was vital to have my answers prior to coming to the meeting to vote. This way I am able to think about the answers, process the information, and continue to get more answers. For me, getting answers a minute before I have to vote would not give me the time to appropriately process the information given to me. I like to have all the facts in order to make an informed decision. People may not always agree with all the decisions made, but as a board member, if you can put your head on the pillow at night and know that you have done the best that you can do, you are doing something right. Just remember, we must always make sure that we are fostering creative minds of our students. And remember that your job as a Board of Ed member is to do what is best for the students and the community of Marlboro. Thank you, Marlboro community.
Thank you, Robin, very much.
My pleasure. Okay, we're going to move on to the certified election results update.
Sure. So we received the certified election results on Tuesday, November 23rd at 12:15 p.m. Via email. And I just wanted to take this time and congratulate Mr. Aldo Petruno, Mrs. Kathleen Amster, Mrs. Christina Rosado, and Mrs. Jessica Piernick for being elected as new and returning board members. So they will be sworn in at our January 4th reorganization meeting, and it'll also be on the agenda with the total vote count. Thank you.
Thank you, Vin, and congratulations to Kathleen, Christine, Aldo, and Jessica. Have a great time on your board and do the best that you can. Thank you. New board member boardsmanship certification. Congratulations to Jen Salacci. She has satisfied all requirements for the new board member boardsmanship certification through the New Jersey School Boards Association, NJSBA Board Member Academy. Those requirements include earning a minimum of 10 credits through attendance at academy sessions, the NJSBA annual workshop, and a variety of county programs. The new board member award recognizes professional development in areas critical to effective school board governance. Jennifer is commended for dedicating substantial time and effort to improve her skills and knowledge. Congratulations and thank you for your dedication and commitment to the students of the Marlboro Township Public School District. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Ben, we're going to move to our school bus driver and building maintenance personnel.
Sure, all abstracts were run and all have privileges in good standing.
Great, thank you. Dr. Hibbs, MTPS quarantine protocols.
Okay. First, I'd like to invite Lauren and Carrie. Come on up. So for everybody, Lauren Gabler is our school nurse at MMS, and Carrie Marcus is our school nurse at Dugan. Let's give them a round of applause because they're amazing. Okay, so we want to talk for a few minutes tonight just about where we are as a district and just lay out to the community some facts, because what we're seeing right now is not indicative of what we should see. So our goal always is to keep healthy students in school. That's the goal of us as a district. And right now, we're really not seeing that goal come to fruition in any way, shape, or form. Coming from the recommendations that come from the New Jersey Department of Health and also really the state of New Jersey. So before I go into there, we're going to talk about quarantines and we're going to talk about a definite plan that we could put into place to mitigate some unnecessary quarantines. But I want to take a second and really just talk about the difference, thank you, Danny, the difference between sick children and students that are in quarantine, because there's a very big difference. And right now, wherever we fall on the spectrum of believing or not believing in COVID or having our personal opinions, which we all do, you know, it's impossible to deny that right now that people are becoming sick at what is really an alarming rate. And whether they have symptoms, not symptoms, very sick, we're not going to debate any of that because frankly, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we are seeing that. But that is very separate from the fact that we are over-quarantining our kids based upon the current rules, which are just not making sense. So I'd like, Lauren and Carrie, just take a second and talk about, you can talk briefly about your day today, Lauren, Carrie, your day every day. Old Middle today, I think, had 14 new cases just today. I think, yeah, 14 cases between 2 days, and had about 133 in quarantine, and then upwards of 100-ish kids today, which I'm sure we're still working through.
More to be tomorrow.
Why don't you just talk a sec about what your day looks like.
So between yesterday and today, we had 14 new cases that have been reported, plus about 10 outstanding pending tests that we know about. With each of those kids, if each kid rides the bus in both directions to and from school, is in 8 classes a day at middle, we could be putting out anywhere from 10 to 25 kids per case, plus sports teams, after-school activities, and clubs. From what we've seen, I know you're going to get into it, so I don't want to go too far, but the majority of the kids that we are putting out on quarantine subsequently are not testing positive. So we know that we're putting out a lot of kids according to the guidelines that could be in school, that we would like in school, but we're having a hard time as up until now because every guideline doesn't support it. So I think Dugan is along the same lines.
Yeah, so I mean, I have the busiest elementary school. I have the most populated elementary school. My office doesn't stop with the phone ringing and the door opening. But the only time I have seen spread in my 50+ cases since the school started of students is when we had our masks off. We know when we were wearing our masks, we're not spreading. We know that the bus is healthy. We know that special is healthy. We know when you go to speech and you leave your mask on, you're healthy. We know gym is fine. We know health is fine. We know Spanish is fine. So, we've run all sorts of different numbers, and we just continue to say we're not spreading in these certain places. Yes, we have a little bit here and there with lunch and even less with snacks. So can we please just move on from here? I'm tired of putting kids that have special needs in kindergarten that aren't even speaking well because they have very harsh issues that need to be worked out. I'm tired of putting out kids that were now in second grade who are home in the middle of kindergarten and home in first. And then my own 3 children. Yes, I'm a mom in the district. My kids go to Asher and they go to middle. All 3 of my kids are in quarantine right now, completely separate, and they are all healthy. And I am so happy that I have a full-time job out of the house. So kudos to you all.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Lauren. And where's that coming from? Got me? Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about our numbers, which quite frankly are just staggering. Now, we've had more cases than the number 174. And you can certainly go to our dashboard on the district and see that. But we've had about 174, and I'm going to say about with all of these numbers because, to be honest, you know what happens day to day, right? They climb, they change. So when we tallied this just very recently, I had 174 cases that led to in-school quarantine. Of these 174 cases, that generated 1,718 close contacts. So, of those 1,718 close contacts, 25 have turned positive for COVID-19. So what that means is that our quarantining board members and community has really led us to quarantine 98.54% of kids that never became positive. And this is just a number that is it's just too much. It is, quite frankly, alarming. And we need to do better, and we need to do things that are differently. And quite frankly, and very honestly, anything we do differently, just to put on the table, will go against the advice of the health department, will go against the current advice of New Jersey. Everything has always been a step behind. You know, this year we have quarantine for 10 days as opposed to the 14, because as a group, we got together and talked about a lot of issues, that being one of them, with all of our nurses and all of our administrators, and unanimously we felt that 14 was just too long. And New Jersey really just shortened that, I think, a few days ago.
Yeah.
You know, a few days ago. Yeah. So for places like us, that doesn't help us because we're already there. So where we struggle, and as a leader I struggle, is that we have been bringing this to everybody we can physically take it to. It's been to the governor, it's been to senators, it's been to assembly men and women, it has gone to the executive county superintendent, and quite frankly, what we have been told about the concept of testing to stay is that sounds great, we're going to get back to you on that concept. Well, it's not okay anymore to say you're going to get back to the concept when we're literally putting out, you know, roughly almost 1,700 more kids than we needed to put out. And you could extrapolate that. I didn't do the math on every child because it would be such an endeavor, but you could extrapolate what those kids could turn into on days out and then onto hours where they would learn remotely. To say it's ludicrous at this point, it's ludicrous. So what we've begun to do is enter into discussions about what testing to stay could look like in Marlboro. To be very honest, New Jersey has said, you know, they said before that they would enter into these conversations down the road. Now it seems this week that they've moved that road up a little bit, but, you know, saying that there'd be pilot districts. To be honest, I have not received any information on anything with a pilot. It's just not out there yet. So we feel as a team it's time for us to move ahead safely and securely and really recognize that people are going to become sick. Right? That's why we can't do anything about that. We honestly think that we're going to see where we are right now all the way through the winter break, and then we're going to see it after because that's just what's going to happen, and then hopefully it would dovetail down a little bit. Either way, honestly and straightforward, testing to stay is not about kids that have symptoms. Anyone with a symptom is going to have to go. You know, that's just how it works. You know, if you had flu symptoms, you wouldn't stay either. So the testing to stay is really for the kids that are not showing symptoms. So we've had informal discussions. We have not finalized our plan 100% of what testing to stay will look like. What I really wanted to do was just explain to the board our frustrations and what we're seeing, knowing that we feel as if it's time to make a change in January, in the month of January, and implement. And thank you. I haven't gotten applause in a while. I appreciate that. And it's my birthday, by the way. And
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Happy
Sorry.
birthday.
Yeah, shameless plug. So, not that I'm proud anymore, I'm old, but anyway. So, what we're going to talk about just very briefly are the concepts that we have discussed and where we are that we need to finalize. So, first thing, and ladies, feel free to weigh in at any point in time on anything. The first thing we really kicked around was the concept that this would only happen with parent permission. Obviously, we're not in the business of testing against parent or guardian permission. So obviously, a parent would have to opt into the test to stay philosophy. So that would be the first thing that we all agreed on. The second thing we all agreed on was a formal communication plan with videos about how we would do it, so parents and guardians could see exactly what could and would happen, to have these conversations. We also agreed and really thought that we would be using rapids and the antigens, which would be a nose swab, because that would be roughly a 10 to 15 minute show on what that would look like. Yeah, depending on the brand. Go ahead.
I mean, just some of them are 10 minutes, some of them are 15 minutes, and we kind of
Use our, yeah, I don't know if it's on.
Oh, here we go.
it's really not that exciting that I'm going to say that there's some brands that are take 10 minutes and some take 15, and in a school of 633 or whatever I have right now, I want one that takes 7 minutes. So obviously we're going to try our best to get obviously cheaper and whatever is going to be quicker and easier, as you know, the flow of a nurse's office during a pandemic.
Yep. And yes, we are sharing a microphone, having a COVID conversation. I'm not quite sure that should be a joke or should not be. No, you're good. So that conversation, for those of you that don't know, we have school districts had the option to choose either option 1 or option 2. Option 1 was to partner with the state assigned lab, which we did, which is Rover Labs, who completes our testing. And option 2, you really had to go out on your own. The state across the board is mixed on what people did. There was some learning. There was some problems out of the gate, to be honest, with Rover. They've gotten better, not so good at communication out of the gate and timeframes, but they've worked that piece out to some extent. And Rover now is shipping us all of our antigen tests. So the hope is that as of right now, and they have committed to this, that the antigen tests will be provided by Rover. Whereas other districts that did not go that route, if they wanted to do some form of a test to stay, they then had to supply the tests on their own. And just as a side note, we're discussing this as a region, so all the sendings to the Freehold region, including Dr. Sampson and everyone else, we are in constant contact about where we are and what we're doing, and each and every one of us is really having this discussion. None of us are having, quite frankly, the Middletown discussion right now. If you don't know what that is, Middletown really seems to be one of the very few districts that just said, we're not quarantining at all, and you can opt out or choose. So that is not the route that we are going to go out of the gate, in my opinion. That is a route that we obviously would all like to get to, because that's where we want to be. And to me, we take the steps to show and collect the data, like the data of really we only needed to quarantine 1.46%. That's the data that we really need to track and move on. So again, Rover Labs. No, you can't do it during the presentation. It's just not how it works. I'm not being rude. Yeah, perfect, understood. So we had the concept of Rover, and then our initial discussions are really to test on the first day that we know of the exposure, and really in doing this a lot, and the nurses do it more, maybe you could take a second, just talk about how that looks, because sometimes it's really day 1, sometimes day 1 is day 4.
Sometimes it's really day 8. I've definitely called probably some of the parents in here and said, hey, sorry, but today's day 8 from exposure. You can go and get a rapid and come right back to school today if you want. and I've let you right back in because
Which case test to stay in that scenario?
I'll
Or
swab
will
you
be
right in my
testing?
office because you already have given permission basically, and you know, we're gonna swab them. I'm gonna say, hey, by the way, I don't know if you got the email or however we decide to notify everybody. Hey, by the way, we swabbed your kid. He doesn't have COVID. We're gonna do it again in 2 days, and it might be day 2. Or if it's on day 8, hey, we swabbed your kid. We're not doing it again tomorrow. We're good to go. Watch for symptoms for 14 days from the date of exposure. Period. The end. That's
So
it.
each situation, each case would vary in how often the child would be tested based off of when we were told about the positive, which unfortunately is not always right away, just due to testing and reporting times from families.
Or fortunately, then your kid gets swabbed less often, less times in total. If I tell you on day 5 you were exposed today, you're only swabbing again on day 7, and day 8 you go back to school. So if the child wasn't in school the same day that they tested positive, then you got less swabs to go. So.
And the whole concept here is truly to just keep our kids in school, recognizing that what we're doing right now is sheer lunacy. It really is. And it went exponential in really the last 2 weeks, where it really hit that pinnacle point. Not that we didn't feel this way before, because we did, but it's really exacerbated right now. The question came up in our conversations, could parents test? And where we are right now with that as an initial discussion is that if a parent wants to take a child to a facility to have a formal test, you can absolutely do that. But we're not going to have parents come into the building to do tests on kids, and then we're also not going to, we can't accept home kits. So if a formal test would be totally fine. We recognize the fact that our nurses would need some help in the development of this plan to make this all come to fruition. Yes, and lots of chocolate, please send to nurses' offices. I'm not going to say that one out loud. And then we also had conversations about, honestly, the staff right now have to test through Rover Labs, but if they're exposed, they really should run through whatever process that we deem appropriate for the children, because really it could keep everybody in. We talked about continuing to watch numbers, and, the reality is that New Jersey is just moving too slow in these discussions. They're just too slow. So we're over quarantining. We are over quarantining to the nth degree. It's enough. The time has come to make a formal change, and the time is now. And we have to do better for our kids. CDC has just very recently released their thoughts on testing to stay. NJDOH has not, in turn, taken that and made that look like something. Typically, they're definitely far behind on that, again. And really, that's where we got to. And what we really, for the board, what we'd really like to do is come back in January and really put a bow on this, on what it would look like to really allow our kids to stay learning in school. And again, it would all come down to parent wishes. So there might be some that would not want to accept the testing, and without the testing, it would honestly be you would have to accept the quarantine. And all the other rules that we do right now would still apply. If at any time the child showed signs or symptoms, right, we would seek to exclude, because that's exactly what we don't want. And then parents obviously would partner with us to make sure that they didn't have any signs or symptoms and send to school. And the goal would be to keep those, call it 1,700 kids not learning remotely. And really, when you look at the numbers that show that 25 kids this year should have learned remotely, and we had over 1,700, it's just, they call it guidance. I'm not quite sure what it is at this point. It needs to change. It needs to change fast. And that's really where we are. Ladies, did I miss anything?
So the only thing I would add is that this is only for kids who are exposed in school, not for kids who are exposed from household contact. The rates of kids turning positive with a family member in the home who's positive is exponentially higher than in-school transmission. So this would only be for kids in school, not at any other type of out-of-school activity or event.
I have a question on that. What about, so you said not any out-of-school activity, but you quarantine for out-of-school activities. So if a team gets quarantined or someone on a team gets exposed, do the rest of the kids have to quarantine?
You mean our team or like a Marlboro Little
like
League
a Marlboro sports team?
Like
So-
a middle school basketball team?
No, like a Marlboro, like you said, Little
Like a
League, or
rec
like a
team.
travel team. So if there's somebody on the travel team that was exposed, the rest of the team has to quarantine.
So that would be a decision by like what we do currently. So it's, if somebody was exposed out of school, they should follow the guidance of if they were deemed a close contact, should quarantine. The issue is we know what is happening in the schools, and we know really how close kids are to each other and if they're wearing masks or not. And we know that our rates of transmission when masks are worn are next to nothing. So what's happening outside of school, we have no handle on what goes on. So no, anything outside of school, including like a little league or rec organization, would not qualify for test to
And
stay.
what are the regulations for that? So if someone on the team, because I remember it from a year ago, I just don't know if it's still the same. So if someone on a team, it tests positive, does everybody else on the team have to quarantine?
So it all depends on when they were together. You know, it all still goes back to, you know, cumulative 15 minutes. Were you closer than 6 feet when you weren't wearing a mask? You know, if you put 5 kids that are wrestling during practice together and it's, you know, not related to school out, and, you know, one test positive, yes, they are definitely all in quarantine. I mean, I get it. They come into school and they wear a mask afterwards, and maybe they stay healthy, but the chances of all of those people getting it are much higher than, you know, 4 kids sitting at a lab table in science wearing their mask the whole time.
Okay, so they can't opt in to test to stay, they have to quarantine.
Right,
Just
so that's usually,
clarification.
and remember, like, you know, if it's a team, we're not always getting that information from everybody,
Right.
you know, and we try to tell someone, hey, maybe someone should tell the coach that you're positive,
We
so
try
they
to
can
let the
figure out who
coaches
it
make those
was.
calls, so we step out of it and only deal with quarantining related to in-school exposures. If we have a question, then we're happy to provide guidance to a parent about what they should do, but ultimately they should be reaching out to the team as a whole and finding out what the coach recommends in terms of who was really exposed.
Okay.
And just adding on to what Susie asked, what if if there's like an 8th grade team, what if the 8th graders who are exposed are vaccinated? Does that not apply? They can still come back to school?
So we haven't hit on every single part of it. I mean, there's still some kinks to work out, vaccinated, unvaccinated, you know, obviously no symptoms can be part of this, but, you know, there's a lot of different kinks, and also the whole, did you have COVID in the last 90 days? You get a, you know, a free, no jail time for 90 days. So, you know, there's kinks to work out that we're.
Good, because that was my question. Because if someone had COVID already, they're going to possibly test positive or test negative. It's like 50-50 chance, you never
Right.
know. So I didn't know if you worked that out yet or not.
So we don't have all the logistics worked out, to be honest with you. What we'd like to do to the board is, I'll ask, does everybody see everybody I'm sure up here, at least, or you can speak on it, do you see our concern with the over quarantining? That to me is a massive problem that we need to rectify immediately. And to me, here's what I would like, and I would appreciate. I would like your blessing to move ahead, to put a bow on this and bring it back to say what it would look like, and with full recognition in the fact that we're going against the Department of Health and we're going against everything New Jersey currently has in motion, knowing that this is not working, and this is not working anywhere. You know, I am in close contact with Dr. Santora at Manalapan. Her percentages mirrored ours. I mean, it was like less than 2%. Hal was a little higher, you know, Burrow and others. I think that we're all seeing the same thing of the fact that, you know, kids are becoming excluded, and there's no reason for it. And, you know, I said this before publicly, one of the most eye-opening conversations that I had was sitting with all the top docs back in the summer from Central State, and they honestly said they had no idea how to handle any of this. And okay, listen, we all learned from a starting point with this entire virus, and we're still learning. But what we know is that 1.46, and to me, that should be our why. And that should be why we're doing something about that. So what we would like to do, if it's acceptable to the board, is work with all of our nurses, our school doctor, and our admin team to put a bow on this and come back and say, what could this look like in January, have a second discussion, and then hopefully implement change to keep our kids learning in school where they belong.
Thank you. And thank you, Lauren and Kerry, for coming out. If everyone could just speak really into their microphone so that everyone at home can hear.
Can I just say something, Robin? This is not even. Hello?
Can you hear her?
Yeah, I'm here. I didn't know if Dr. Hibbs was asking a question for everyone, like a straw poll type of deal. But I feel that over quarantining is not the solution. I think this is proactive. I think it's necessary. I'm on board with it 120%, as long as it keeps kids in school. But again, I don't know if you're looking for answers.
I was looking for, I was looking for people to talk, and weigh in, absolutely.
I'm all for it. I actually have, my son is healthy and quarantining at the moment, so I'm all for testing to stay, as long as the criteria is for vaccinated and unvaccinated children, because unvaccinated people, is it given in what we're reading, can still get it and still spread it. So I'm all for this, as long as the guidelines are exactly the same.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
I want to second that. I mean, there should be no reason why an unvaccinated or vaccinated kid shouldn't get this. I mean, it should not be that. It should not even be a discussion. But again, I'm saying yes to it. If everybody else wants to say whatever,
I just want to say one thing about the vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Yes, we all know you can get vaxxed, boosted, have COVID 3 times, and you're still at risk for getting it again. I totally agree. My problem is my workload in my office. Right before Thanksgiving, I had 110 kids that were out, and the middle school is upwards of 200 something, and probably by tomorrow. I can't imagine trying to swab that many kids. How would I possibly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on, guys.
I can hear that.
Hold on. So, listen, we can't go back and forth. No, but like, listen, I think that's a good point about what I said before. We all have feelings on this, right? 100%. So at the end of the day, we respect your feelings, and we always do. And what I've said out of the gate is that our protocols are not finished yet, and we've had initial discussions. So, as a practice, we do not discriminate against children. So, you want to keep going with?
I had one little thing, if you don't mind. Like I said, I'm all for it. Would we be able to have, so
Can you
have
please
help?
speak into the microphone?
Oh, I thought I was, sorry. I'm still recovering. What was I saying? Rover Labs, would we be able to have Rover Labs help our nurses with the kids? Just something to think about. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but that way it's not all
could be.
on
I like
nurses.
that idea.
You know what I mean?
It absolutely could be.
Okay.
What I've seen with Rover Labs, hold on guys. What I've seen with Rover Labs, just quite honestly, is that they were a disorganized mess out of the gate. So could that be an option? Absolutely. So just so you know, what we've done now is that Rover Labs initially said they'd be able to do all the kids and all the staff. Most places started out with just staff only, and it was a good call here at least, because there was it was a rocky road, right? So recently they actually tried to get out of the testing business, not out of it, but out of the actual testing to have districts do it themselves, which I said no to. That's not appropriate right now. So they are still doing that. And then the second part is they said we'll send you also as many antigen tests as you would like. I saw that immediately and thought, wow, well that's great for us, because we all know how much tests could cost, especially in a 4,700 child district across, to figure out what that would be. Now, I'm not going to put a price tag on kids, because to be honest with you, if it came down to testing our kids and paying for it, then close your ears. I would still advocate for paying for it, because we need to keep our kids where they belong, which is learning in the halls of our classrooms. So at that point, I think that we can explore that. Yes.
I just want to say that I like what Jen was thinking, and that's that I agree with Randy and I agree with Kathleen that it is definitely something that we should continue exploring, but I do agree that we should not discriminate, and we need to also explore, if the nurses need help, how do we get the nurses help?
Yep.
Because I don't want to differentiate between kids.
I agree as well. I mean, but we definitely, I was saying beforehand, Kerry, I felt so bad for you, because my own son, he was, my son Connor was in school. Mrs. Marcus called me. I kept him out. I got the test. brought him back. He was in school literally one day, and it was before Thanksgiving. And she called me, and I felt, I'm just saying, like, for these poor nurses, like, here she is calling me before Thanksgiving, and I'm hosting, and she's like, I'm so sorry, your son's exposed, and, you know, and it's, my heart goes out to you guys, too, because it's not fun to be the bearer of bad news, especially before the holiday season. So if we can do anything we can to help you, I'm all for it.
I'm for it, too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll
do
provide
what
help.
we need.
Was
I'll
there
get my
anybody else that
gloves
wanted
as
to
well.
weigh in?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hibbs and the nurses.
Well, let me ask a question. Can we get parent volunteers to be taught how to do these testing in order for?
I don't think so. That
No?
would be a liability
Okay, I'm
issue.
just throwing it out. Just
Well, so
Sorry.
let me just recap what I'm hearing from the board members. I'm hearing that everybody is okay with the philosophy, correct?
Yes.
I'm also hearing from the board members that we want it to be equitable across the board, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So then what we will have to do is that we will sit down as a team, we will sketch this through, and that sketch will also have to include how we're actually helping the nurses in this endeavor. I ran a report today with vaccination numbers, which is not complete, but I know that all of the vaccinations are not uploaded yet. So it's going to exponentially increase. So, okay, we have our marching orders, and we're going to come back in January with a plan to keep our kids in the classrooms. How's that sound? Good? Good?
Thank you very much, Dr. Hibbs and the nurses. Trish, did you want to add anything, or Steve?
Can we give them a hand too, everybody, please? Sorry,
Dr.
Rob.
Hibbs, Dr. Hibbs, can you hear us?
Yes, you started to talk, and I apologize. I talked through you. Can you hear me?
No, that's fine. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone, and thank you for the participation in that. And I think it's great to have more discussions on this, and it would be great to keep more kids in school.
Yes.
Thank you.
The guidelines
Yeah.
are clearly not working, and I'll give Mr. Ballone a shout out. He always goes back to the why of it, and Mr. Ballone from the beginning has said it makes no sense just to test one set of kids when everybody's getting sick, which is what we're seeing. So, Mr. Ballone, shout out to you. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you to Kerry and Lauren for coming out tonight also. It's really appreciated. And all the work all the nurses are doing in the district this year. It's very overwhelming and really greatly appreciated. They're definitely experts on this. We're going to move on to our 2022-2023 school year calendar discussion.
Is it okay to lead, Rob? Can I start? Is it okay to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we put together for your perusal is a sketch of what 2022 and 2023 school year calendar would look like. I'm going to go over some highlights here, and I also want to acknowledge the petition that my old eyes that was submitted from students and parents with 648 residents. I think Dr. Shukla, thank you very much for doing this. And I'll talk about Dwali in just a second, which I think you'll like the response. How about that? Let's not bury the lead. So what we did with this school calendar is, and I'll go over the highlights. So we have 4 in-service days. So what we're presenting to the board for hopeful discussion tonight only and an approval in the new year is to continue to have 4 in-service days. What that means is we built in 2 inclement weather days. So before COVID, we typically had 183 days for students, and that really built in 3 snow days. And we just found that just wasn't enough time for professional development. It just simply wasn't with everything we had to do. And frankly, we think that's how it should continue. In the 2022-2023 calendar, 2 of these days will be in September, 1 in October, and then 1 in February. So what I've done for the board, you won't see this is the notes that go home to them. I've forecasted the next, I think, almost 5 years of Lunar New Year and also Diwali. And what we have the ability of doing over the next 5 years, quite frankly, is simply moving the October usual in-service and having that be on a day, an in-service day for where Diwali would fall, so that we could consistently put that into our calendar and have a full day off for all the children in Marlboro. And that would allow us, by using the 4 days, it would allow us to honor both Lunar New Year and also Diwali. And and sometimes, one falls on a weekend, sometimes it doesn't. So we have the ability of doing that. And that would be in next year's calendar, I believe, on 10/24. And that would also include in September Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which would be actually September for Rosh Hashanah, the 2 days, and then for October 5th. Columbus Day will be an open day. November is a typical month. As you can see, it really just has, has convention, it has Thanksgiving. December, also typical month. January, typical month with Martin Luther King Day. In February, we have the extra in-service, which will pair up to President's Day. So kids will actually, as proposed, be off on that Friday, and then have off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for President's Day. March is an anomaly. We're actually here every day that month. April has spring recess. May has Memorial Day, and then June has some half days in here at the very end of the year. So other than that, I think it's the usual type of calendar. It still pairs us with the regional in virtually every way we physically can, which is, I know, really important to parents because it's important to have that continuity across calendars. And then, the only other question that came from Jill was, and Jill, I'll let you talk about it.
Oh, sure. No, just with Juneteenth being made a federal holiday last year, I know a lot of corporate America is, treating it as a full day off. But I was thinking maybe it would be good to have a half day, because that way, if parents out there do get that day off, and it's June, we live near the ocean, they want to take their child on a half day, they won't have to feel as much, I don't know, mom guilt, I call it, about how your child missing a full day. So at least that way it's sort of recognized and it's a half day, but, we don't have to stay in school longer. So that was mine.
So that could be, and what that would mean is that we could turn the 16th, which Juneteenth is the third Friday of June consistently, and it would actually connect to the other half days.
Which is great. So everybody has just another series of, it's just one more half day added onto the chain, essentially.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's no break in it. So I honestly, and I think moving forward, it's sustainable.
Great, thank you. The calendar looks great, Dr. Hibbs. And I'm glad we were able to include Diwali in there.
Yep, and thank you to Teresa, my secretary, who does all this work and changes it 90 million times. So thank you, Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa.
Great, thank you. Anyone have any other comments? Okay, we're going to move on to our next discussion, which is
yes, we will.
Proposed list of board meeting dates, January 2000.
Sorry.
Hold on one sec, Rob. I'm so sorry. Randy had a comment.
I was talking to Dr. Hibbs, and I was just asking him if it was going to be reflective in the schedule, because right now when you look at the schedule, it doesn't say Diwali, and it doesn't say Lunar New Year, so I was just hoping that that would be reflective in the calendar, out of respect.
Absolutely. Okay. And I don't think Lunar New Year would be on this one, because I believe it falls on a weekend.
Oh, on a weekend.
Yeah, but that, yes.
It's my same thing.
100%, got it.
Great, thank you. Good, everyone? Okay, we're going to move on to our proposed list of board meeting dates, January 2022 to January 2023. Vin?
Sure. So you should have received the copy of the tentative board meeting dates. We just wanted to bring this to the board as a discussion. So the list of dates that are proposed is, of course, the January 4th, which is the reorganization meeting. January 18th, which would be a regular. February 8th would be a workshop. February 22nd would be a regular. March 8th would be a workshop. March 15th would be a regular. April 26th would be a regular meeting. May 3rd would be the special reorg meeting. May 17th would be a regular meeting. Then we have June 21st as a regular. July 26th as a regular. August 23rd as a regular. September 20th. October 18th, November 22nd, December 20th, all as regulars, and then we have our next reorg meeting as January 3rd, 2023. So we wanted to open this up to discussion to everyone to see, what you would like to do with the calendar.
Trish.
I would like to suggest, just in anticipation that
it's been brought up in previous board meetings from parents and people on the board that we like to have more workshop meetings. So I know that it's important to do that definitely while we're looking at the budget. And I know April's somewhat challenging because of, the breaks and that kind of stuff. But if we could look at April and definitely adding a September, October, I guess the holidays too with November, December might be somewhat challenging, but I'd like to see us add more workshop meetings in the second part of the year, specifically, September, October, November-ish timing.
Thank you, Trish. Anyone else?
I was just gonna agree with Trish. I think we should do, if not both September, October, then definitely October. Just adding more workshops, I feel, would be good for us as well.
I agree. I mean, we've brought this up here, so.
Consensus on adding April, September, October?
September, I'm a little more tentative about September just because I know there's so many back to school nights for parents. So I think September could be tricky.
Yeah.
I don't want to, especially, I don't know when the Jewish holidays fall, because if the Jewish holidays fall in September on top of back to school, I know that's even more challenging for parents.
So can I also offer that I think we put it on the schedule as long as it doesn't interfere with a holiday or something else that's going on. And if we don't actually need them, then we've canceled them in the past. But I just think for me as a board member, I like to get my schedule organized so I know when I'm expected to be there. And I just think it would be helpful if we put them on now so that we know that we have it. And then if we need to change it or cancel it because we don't have something to discuss, then that's fine.
That sounds good.
That's what I was gonna say, same thing. To just have it on, I was gonna say the same thing. To have it on the calendar so we have it as a placeholder, and if it's not needed, it's not needed. If it's needed, we've got it.
So what months would you like us to definitively?
September, October.
Okay.
And I think someone said April.
April, yeah.
Okay. So adding back in April, September, and October. So we'll then.
Okay, yep, I got that.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. Everyone good with that discussion? Anyone have any other comments? We're going to move on to our lack of substitutes, teacher substitute rates. Paul?
Thank you, Madam President. After diligently reviewing the substitute teacher rates throughout Monmouth County, we have decided to recommend an increase to our daily substitute rates from $95 to $105. This increase will allow us to be more competitive and more attractive. It will also give us an advantage over the majority of the nearby school districts who are currently paying their substitute teachers between the rate of $95 or $100 a day. What we have done is to reach out to different school districts and ask them to.
Paul, could you talk directly into it? It's kind of hard. Yeah.
You guys hear me?
Yes, that's great.
Thank you, Paul.
So what we have done is we reach out to the different school districts to provide their rates. So to give you some example, we have Colton Neck who are paying their substitute teachers $90 to $95 a day. We also have Howard who's paying $100 a day for their certified substitute teachers and $85 a day for the non-certificated consuming who have the substitute teachers. We have also.
Hey, Paul. You have to go into it. I know it's hard with the microphone. I'm even having a hard time, but I am getting old and can't hear anymore.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in regards to Freehold Township, they are paying their daily substitute teachers about $95, and also to those who are certified on $100 a day. And another example is Framingham, about $90 a day. So based upon those numbers, we feel comfortable to present this recommendation to move forward with $105 a day.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question.
So
on
it's
that.
$105, raising it to $105 a day?
Yes.
105.
Okay, thank you.
Robin, Susie has a question.
I have a question on that. So raising it to 105, and you gave us Colts Neck, Harrell, Freehold Township, and Farmingdale. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. What about some of the others surrounding us that wasn't mentioned? Are they a lot higher? I'm thinking maybe Manalapan or Freehold Regional or, you know, some of the others. And if there are others, so those are the ones that are within the same range. Are there others that are local that are even completely out of our range that we would be competing with?
So we have reached out to another school district that went as far as $150 a day, and it confirmed to us that making that increase did not yield any results for them. So, and to be honest with you, I can definitely share this document with the board.
Okay.
You can see all the different school districts.
Great.
But this definitely puts us above a lot of the other school districts. It definitely makes us a little bit more competitive and a lot more effective.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Susie.
I have a question. With the substitute, I know if we hire in-house within the district, the retired teachers, it's trickier with the pensions. If we went to an outside agency such as like ESS, because I know Vince brought that up last meeting, would that be a better pool? Or has your research kind of shown that it's better to just hire directly at the 105 rate rather than go through ESS, as just an example?
I'm just going to jump in real quick.
Sure.
So with retirees, so they have to wait about 180 days before they can actively come back to the district and do anything.
Okay.
So that creates, you know, an issue if we're time barred and we're looking for someone really quick, which, you know, after filling out timesheets for missed teacher preps, it seems like we need them right away.
Yes. Yeah.
As far as, I know your next question was with ESS, so, you know, ESS is going to allow us, or another company per se, whoever we decide to go with, is going to allow us to expand the sub pool. So currently, right now, I think we only had 160, or how many subs did we have, Paul?
About 150.
150. So of those 150, only 40 or 50 may be interested in subbing right now. So we can't really, we're having a hard time actively looking for people and adding them to the list. Going with a company will allow us to further expand that pool. So now whatever district is part of that company now becomes, you know, our sub, so they can start taking our jobs and they can start working for Marlboro. And they completely handle all of the vetting process. They handle all of the payroll. They would officially become their employees, and they do give them incentives such as sign-on bonuses and health benefits, so that wouldn't necessarily change. And they do fill long-term leave absence. Some of them have filled nurses as well. So we just think it's not so much as far as the rate, because again, as Mr. Apollon said, there's a district there that's paying $150, and they're having a very hard time in even finding anybody at such a high rate because their pool is not large enough. I don't believe they partner with the company. So to answer your question, if you did service with a company, you'd have access to all of their subs too. And I think there were some companies that were offering up to 900 substitutes that were active.
So you're saying we would have a pool of that much?
In the Monmouth County region.
So I guess to piggyback on why are we not going there?
Well, we wanted to put it on as a discussion. It's simple fact is we don't have enough coverage, and we need help, and we have fail to fills every day, and we want to expand our pool. That's A. B, going with like an ESS would mean that we're raising our rate. They would take our rate of 105. They also have a surcharge in there as well, which would raise it beyond that. And I think when we figured it out today, it was roughly around $135-ish per day.
It was about 136.
Yeah. So, but what I want you to focus on is, when Vinny came down to do our pre-meeting for the board meeting tonight, he brought with him a stack of papers, probably that thick, right, Vin?
Those were all misprep time
Yeah,
sheets.
so we're paying mispreps to cover at, call it $48 an hour.
Right.
Rounded to 40, 8 periods a day, you're paying a $400 rate for a sub across the entire district.
Right.
Now, what I'm not saying is that there is any 100% magic solution to any of this. We are seeing shortages across the entire nation. But what we are saying is that we believe this should be the next step in expanding our pool, because we have fail to fills every day. We feel that this will give us a better opportunity to have more people for coverage.
Because I know since our last board meeting, I went back to where I worked, and I was, talking to this retired teacher, and she said how she loved working for the outside contractor because it doesn't impact her pension. And she said, oh yeah, it's great. All my retiree friends were all working for, this agency, and I just know from just talking to the teachers, they're so burned out, and
Yeah.
they're doing so much, and just
They
the
are.
teachers I work with, you know, they're stretched way too thin.
Yeah.
And I worry about that because
Yeah.
that, you know, I don't want people leaving the profession. So if I'm all for using that's my vote.
I have
I'm
a
all for
question.
using the outside agencies.
I have a question about the outside agency. So you just said $136. So we increased our rate to 105.
Yes.
But we're gonna be paying 136 because that additional amount is what we paid the agency.
Yes.
But there's a bigger pool. That's
No,
the
I
trade-off.
understand that. I understand that. I just wanna make sure bottom line budget-wise, we're dealing with, every time we have a sub, it's really 136.
Yeah, if you
Even
take,
though the
if you
sub
take,
is
yeah.
receiving 105.
Yes.
Okay.
If you
Okay.
take 105, multiply it by 0.3, it's
Mhm.
$31.50. You take the $31.50, add it back to the 105, you're at, 136.
Listen, I think it's a slam dunk. I think it's almost like the COVID testing in a sense. I think to consider this what is it called?
In addition, Dr. Hibb, we won't be hopefully doing as many class coverages, which is
Right, we
costs
probably
us
would
a lot
still
more.
work out ahead.
Absolutely. I definitely want to say that, I will never say that it would eliminate all of that, but it
Right.
would eliminate a significant
reduce it
portion of
significantly.
it, yes.
And I think we're at a point in time where $136 looks a lot less than spending $400 on
I agree.
teachers to cover Ms.
Yeah,
Pratt.
absolutely.
And just curious, with regards to background checks and all the other procedures, how does that work? And is it stringent like ours?
Yeah.
Yes, so eventually they will be responsible to make sure the background checks, the fingerprint, the hazard trash, all those onboarding and parts are completed through them.
All handled through them.
Now, we would still approve them on our agenda, so we are given the autonomy to, if we don't like a sub, we contact the subserve and say, hey, they have to, leave. We don't want them back here. So they would go on almost like a no-fly list. They would go on a list where they would not be allowed back in the district.
And on the opposite side, we can absolutely give preference to our substitutes that have dedicated their time and hours and
Fantastic.
energy to Marlboro, which we would do. And the honest, they're going to get a pay raise. They're not losing. They're actually gaining. They're going to get more money.
Do our subs
Right.
currently go into that program?
That was my
Our subs do
question.
not, but they would. Yeah, they would transfer.
Tricia.
Yeah.
Tricia.
Is there any talk with the substitutes, because you just made mention of like we would give preference to the substitutes that we already currently use. Do we foresee any pushback on the subs that we're using now to say, well, I don't necessarily want to join that agency? I mean, could we lose some of the subs because they don't want to join the agency? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Good.
I don't believe so because one of the things that they'll have access to is to work 5 consecutive days through that agency. As of now, I think they serve are limited to 4 days a week, so this will, give them an opportunity to work more for us.
I mean, we can't speak for everyone and what they're going to choose to do, but at the same token, they're going to give you incentives to join their company as far as whether it be, an incentive in the form of a gift card, whatever their company policy is as far as, attracting new talent and new employees.
I mean, I can speak for myself just because I am working through one of those agencies. I had my resume out with multiple agencies, and I'm not a teacher, so that's just so you don't know that there's no conflict of interest here. No, just because, and I don't work, I use DSS on purpose because I don't work for ESS, just so everyone knows. But I get calls all the time, like even the contracting agencies are desperate and they're giving, like if you go on NewJerseySchoolJobs.com, you'll see every day, swing education, $1,200 bonus, $1,300 bonus. And, and the agencies are trying to poach from each other. Like it's just a desperate situation all around. So if we can help our teachers in any way by using the outside agency, like Randy said, it's a slam dunk. And also, as an individual, yes, I had to pay for my fingerprints. I can't remember what else I had to pay for, but it was negligible. And honestly, the hourly rate I get is so much better than when I see advertised when the school districts, sorry guys, in-house. So, I mean, I looked at a job where it was a leave replacement and they were gonna offer me less than half of what I was getting through my agency. So, I mean, the teachers are going to the subs are going to the highest bidder. Like the woman I spoke with at the middle school where I work said. She was like, oh yeah, this town's this. You know, I could get that here, I could get that here, but you know, I live in Brick, so, and the cost of gas is high, so I'm staying local. So if we can we'll help ourselves.
Yep.
Can I just ask one thing? The district that you said, Paul, was offering $150, and you said there was no noticeable difference. I mean, does that concern anyone about what? I mean, is it just because there just are not subs available, and is the $10 really going to make a difference for this, or what is the
Freehold Barrel? Yeah. Freehold Barrel? Yeah, I talked to Joe. This was one of the conversations that I had personally with all the regional superintendents, and you know, aside from the outlier of Barrow, we're all really competitive in the same way, and Joe was honest that his 150 didn't make a dent in a difference. So I don't know that it's just about the money, it's also about the access to people as well. You know, I don't know what Joe would do or would not do in Freehold, but we know that we're struggling with coverage, and you know, we need to do something better so that we have, you know, we have teachers in classrooms.
And sometimes it can just be locations, like Lakewood's, from what I'm hearing, is offering a lot, but Lakewood's, you know, it's not the easiest place to drive to in the mornings. You know, your commute can really vary. So people don't want to work at Lakewood, even though they've upped their price.
There's a little more to it.
So what do you need from us to move forward with this?
I honestly, I can just put it on in January, and we can move forward with the transition.
And we can vote on it in January?
Yeah, and then we can, you know, start hopefully making a difference not only with testing of kids, but also number of substitutes as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think that's great, Dr. Hibbs.
Okay.
Can I just also ask though that if we do make this change, can we at some point, like when we get data, to know how much of a cost savings it was? I mean, the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous, and it might be an unfounded concern, but if everybody's moving to the same 3 agencies because we're all having the same issues, I'm just wondering if in the end, are we really going to get the amount of subs extra that we need? But I'm open to trying something different, because if it's not working now, then we have to try something different, because that's what we need to do. But I also just want to make sure that it is like the right decision moving forward, that financially, you know, that's making a difference.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that for you.
Thank you. Great suggestion, Trish. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contribution to that. We're going to move on, unless anyone has any more questions on that. Okay, great. Seeing none, we're going to move on to our 2022-23 school year budget. Vin, I'm going to share your presentation.
Yeah, it's going to be behind you.
Just tell me when you want me to change slides.
Sure, thank you, Robin. Good evening, everybody, and happy holidays. I'm assuming this large turnout is for the budget, so I'm glad everybody can make it in and learn more about the 22-23 budget. Okay, so the first slide, I really just wanted to give everyone a brief overview of what we faced in 21-22. So just to kind of beating a dead horse here when it comes to S2. S2, you know, has revised the aid that the school districts receive, and that's basically when they review the adequacy budget. Now, in 2019, Marlboro was determined to be over adequacy, which was in accordance with S2. So being over adequacy, they're trying to say that the local fair share was lower than what it should be. So basically, they were trying to say that we should be going after more of the local fair share and less of the state aid. And this is what resulted in your state aid decrease. In return, the state aid decrease actually goes back to underfunded, underprivileged school districts. So as you would see, they would be called below adequacy, and they'd be getting increased state aid. And this is supposed to go until the year 24-25. So what we're seeing is that we're going to be estimating an elimination of a little over $1 million, about 1.1 is what we saw for this year. And it's actually not going to be that much different for the following year. Mrs. Wolf?
Yep, I'm trying to move it. Hold on. Hold on. There we go. Oop. It went all the way, sorry. Okay, there you go.
So this is actually our future summary. So as you can see, the 21-22, that was what the actual loss was. A little under from what was predicted, but pretty spot on. It was only about $12,000 off. For 22-23, we're estimated again to lose a little over $1 million, which would be the second year of the biggest cut of this 5-year plan. And then 23-24, we're estimated to lose approximately $665,000, and 24-25 would be $210,000. Now again, these are estimations, and they are subject to change depending on, the new adequacy budget that's calculated by the state each year. So how can we do this, the big picture? What we have to do, of course, is eliminate a little over $1 million from the 22-23 budget that we're set to lose. How we recommend accomplishing? So as we've discussed in previous budget discussions in previous years was our roofing plan. So we are at the tail end of that roofing plan where we are, finishing up the last roof at the end of this school year, which would take place during the summer. So it would come out of this year's budget, and that is the Robertsville roof. So how we were completing our roof plan was we were actually budgeting $1 million strictly in our operating budget to finish the roof plans in an expedited way, knowing that these big cuts were coming, so we could actually reduce the operating budget by the $1 million we were budgeting for the roofs. So in return, this would actually offset the state aid decrease we were set to face, which is, so we were set to lose a little over $1 million. If we take $1 million out, then we would actually only have to cut about $69,000 out of our 22-23 school year budget without really sacrificing anything else.
Hold on, it's giving me a problem, it's flipping.
Oop, right, one before.
Okay, it's for some reason it's freezing. Hold on, I'm gonna stop sharing and then go, sorry. Experiencing some technical difficulties. Sorry, Ben. Something's going on with my computer. Hold on now, I gotta open it again. This is what happens when I'm at home.
It's all right, it's slide number 5, so I'll continue. And then we can look at
open
the
it.
slide as we go through it. So the next slide, it was just another big picture to show the 2023-24 and the 2024-25 cuts. So again, we need to eliminate a total of $875,160 over those succeeding 2 years. Now, since we won't be budgeting for the roofs anymore, we are going to have to, find a reduction in the budget to offset those losses. So in 23-24, it was the $665,000, and then in 24-25, it was the $210,000. So again, you're not going to have that roofing money that we were budgeting to eliminate and kind of give it a quick offset. We're actually going to have to dig deep and find a way to eliminate this from the next 2 budgets. But we do have a plan in trying to do that in the easiest possible way.
Okay, sorry. Next one.
So let's, after the roofs are done, the next biggest, okay, thank you, Brian. The next biggest construction project is our HVAC plan. We were hoping this would take place in the form of how we used to budget for the roofs as far as HVAC, but unfortunately, with all the reductions that we're facing, you're not going to be able to budget $1 million anymore in the budget and be able to continue a plan. So we proposed, it's on tonight's agenda to be approved, is to start Tofino and Dugan as the first 2 schools for HVAC upgrades. So how we plan on doing this in 21-22, so this school year's, so we designated ESSER ARP funds in the designated amount that we can go up to of $868,404. And also on for approval tonight is we were eligible for an NJDOE facilities grant in the amount of $109,000. This would allow us to start Tofino and potentially Dugan in the summer of 22 using funds from this year's budget. Now to finish Dugan in the 22-23 budget, since again we're not going to have any room to budget in our operating budget, we're actually going to have to withdraw funds from our maintenance and capital reserves to complete Dugan. Now, we are continuing trying to replenish these funds that are taken out every year. So at the year end in the June meeting, you'll see we're always designating or allocating a certain amount from our surplus back into our reserves. So this would be the process going forward for 23-24 and 24-25 if we want to stay aggressive on continuing our HVAC plan and finishing the remaining 3 schools after Dugan and Defino, which would be Morrell, Robertsville, and Asher. So these are actually some of the highlights that we're proposing in the budget. So these are building and grounds highlights. So of course, we'll start with the district-wide projects. Every year we routinely try to budget for asphalt repairs across the district, concrete repairs, painting, that's another required maintenance or necessary maintenance that's always happening throughout the year. Masonry, tree removal, and classroom flooring is always a big one. We're always assessing the buildings and seeing what needs to be replaced, what might be a safety issue. Some other individual key projects that we're proposing is, of course, the Dugan and Defino HVAC projects. Abbott is actually one of the last generators that need to be replaced. This past year, we replaced Middle and Memorial's generators. I believe Middle's is just about to be finishing up. The exterior doors at Dugan, also replacing the clock system at Defino and Dugan. A lot of our clocks are still analog, and they do use electricity, so there's other alternatives out there to try to create an additional cost savings for the district by possibly going through a server-based clock or Wi-Fi. New bleachers at Robertsville, possibly looking to starting a window replacement at Morrell and Asher. Continuing the brick repointing at Middle. We're always trying to repoint the brick. It is an aging building, and we're always trying to keep upkeep inside and out. New cafe floor at Asher, and new library floor at Dugan. So some of the major multimedia areas that we try to replace. Now again, this is subject to change because our S2 estimations can always come in higher or lower. So we have to be vigilant in making sure that we budget what's necessary and not so much what we would like to see done or is not really necessary at the time. Some other highlights, so in the technology department, we continue to try to do our 6th grade Chromebook replacement refresh. So what we do is we replace a grade and then we trickle them down to try to just keep them updated because they usually have a 4 to 5 year life. Fiber cabling and switches, we're running all new wiring and cabling through Middle and Defino. These would be the last 2 schools of this project. And then they would all have new Cat 6e cables updated. Last year we changed to our 5 gig bandwidth for our internet. We would continue that going forward. And the last one is the Promethean active panels. So we started to replace those in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, and all of special ed. We would like to see if we can continue that into other grades. This way we can work towards a plan of having it district-wide, all updated. Curriculum, we plan on purchasing the following. So we continue to purchase kindergarten iPads for our new projected sections. Curriculum writing, we have some extensive curriculum writing going on throughout the year for ELA, GNT, math, science, social studies, and related arts. And then, of course, we're purchasing new textbooks for the elementary level, which I believe is strictly for grammar, correct, Mr. Bowen? So our recommendation is to explore going to the 2% tax levy increase. So what this means is that it'll be able to help the district sustain in programs, the unforeseen class sizes and the scheduled infrastructure improvements while, always continually trying to combat the decrease in the state aid. So a little bit of why this is our recommendation. I know it can be an unfavorable one, but this is the why. So of course we're set to decrease state aid from S2 for over $1 million. Again, we have a plan for that, which is, to eliminate the $1 million that we normally budgeted for roofs. Now, the S2 cut is just an estimate, so it could be more, it could be less. I know last year, I believe there was a district, I believe it was Howell, that predicted an estimate in accordance with their plans, and they wound up losing almost double of what they projected. So it can happen. We also still need to be prepared for the last 2 years, which is another $875,000 that we would need to cut. And that would not include having that $1 million on on hand in the operational budget to offset that decrease. This could create a possible budget shortfall if we were to not go to 2% and still try to make cuts, because you could be sacrificing the quality of the education, you know, the continual upgrades of the roof, I mean, of the projects such as HVAC, and also the class sizes. So if you ever had to eliminate staff or programs, you know, the class sizes would increase. You know, the yearly increases of why we believe this is our recommendation. So we have seen some yearly increases. So again, negotiated salaries, that is a budgeted increase that we continually have to budget for year after year until the life of the negotiated contract. District insurance, health benefits, out-of-district tuition, transportation, many of the maintenance service contracts or any type of program service contracts, the upkeep of facilities, and of course the increase of supplies and materials. And we have seen a great deal of increase in supplies and materials due to COVID, whether the company is claiming it to be shortages on materials or shortages on staff. We've seen exponential increases when bids come in, or even when we're ordering something that usually we're not really expected at all. So that's really why we're looking at the 2% increase. So I wanted to provide a little breakdown to everybody of how this would impact the taxes. So we are using the same assessed valuation from last year, because the new one we haven't received yet. So as you can see, if you raised your taxes 2%, the plus 65 plus 87 is the dollar amount you would see increase based on your assessed home value. So I included the 2% and the 1.5% increase. So as you can see, and in parentheses, that would be the total amount of tax levy that would be going to the district if you were to increase by that percentage. The next slide will also show you the 1% increase and the 0.5% increase. And so this is our budget timeline for 22-23. The preliminary budgets are due to the county on March 20th, and we will have, I believe, one meeting in January, 2 meetings in February, and 1 in March to discuss the budget. And again, like last year, my door is always open. I know we had some one-on-one meetings as far as going over the budget binders and going over more things in greater detail that you had questions about. And then, so the tentative budget would have to be adopted at our second meeting in March. The latest the budget can be approved by the DOE is April 20th, 2022, and the final budget has to be adopted by the Board of Education by May 9th, which I believe would be our May 3rd meeting where we would have to adopt the budget, or our April 26th, I believe it was, or April 20th. Again, if you have any questions, please, feel free to always contact me by phone or email, and I'll be happy to help. That's it.
Thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Vinny, and thank you, Brian, for taking that over. Thank you for your work for that. And there'll be many more budget discussions in the new year. And if anyone has questions before that, just reach out to Vinny. Okay, thank you. Anybody have anything right now? We're going to move on to our first public comments. Those who wish to speak should state their name and address. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. The business administrator will give you a warning when you have 1 minute remaining. Members of the public should be respectful and avoid back and forth debate with the administrative professional or board member responding to the inquiry or comment.
First on the list is Mrs. Chrissy Bodsford.
Good evening. I was inspired to do this by a parent who I saw speak at a board meeting a while back. I am the literacy coach here at Memorial. I taught here before I became a coach, so welcome to my house. I hope you're all having a good evening. To the parents and guardians, thank you for sharing your children with us. In my time in Marlboro as a teacher and literacy coach, parent interactions have been overwhelmingly positive. Even if there were frustrations or misunderstandings, we always managed to work it out. You've been supportive and generous, and I look forward to getting to know more of you. To our students, I'm constantly impressed by you. Sorry, I'm a crier. You keep me on my toes, bring me so much joy, and your curiosity and questioning push me to learn more, and I truly am thankful to get to be part of your lives. To the Memorial teachers, I feel so fortunate to work with you. You two teach me and push me to grow. Thanks for all the laughs and great conversation. I'm happy to be part of your tribe. To our administration, you tolerate my barrage of ideas and work hard to make our work environment safe and happy while also pushing us to grow. Thank you. To our staff, thank you for laughing at my dumb jokes, being patient with my late attendance, and answering my endless paperwork questions. To our custodial staff and lunchroom staff, you all are always so kind. I wish we had more time to chat, but those of you I've gotten to know, you've made me feel welcome from day one. I recently returned from a bereavement leave and was overwhelmed by the kindness of the Memorial team and the literacy coach crew. The web of support they wove made leaving my family back in Texas bearable. I was also touched by the kindness of the staff at the board office for all the offering of condolences. You all have made the grieving process more bearable. There are many people and many reasons I love my job, and I just wanted to express my gratitude.
Good job, Chris.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for your family's loss.
Sure. Next up is Dr. Nitika Shukla. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
Good evening, everyone. Respected Dr. Hibbs, Mrs. Wolf, and all members of the board. At this point, I would just like to thank you all for accepting our request to designate Diwali as an official holiday for Marlboro Township Public Schools. Many Marlboro residents have gathered today to support this cause, and like all of us can see, we had this petition where we had 648 residents of the town signed, so that goes to show that it means a lot for a lot of people who live in this town. So I just want to thank the board for making this decision, and wish you all a very happy and safe holiday season. Thank you.
You as well.
Thank you very much.
Rob, thank you for everything.
Thank you, Robert. Next up is Rakesh Chandwani.
Good evening, Dr. Hibbs and the board. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak here. I had prepared a big speech just to support the petition for Diwali, but I don't think it is needed anymore. So I just like to thank the board and Dr. Hibbs for considering this petition of ours. Just wanted to mention that Diwali is a lunar calendar holiday, just like many other. So it will come on different days every year, and I hope you can just find the right day for this. In the petition, we have already mentioned the 2 days it appears for 2022 and 2023. So that's all I had. Yep, I'll just spare my speech for some other time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Bishan Agarwal.
If I can take the mask off for 1 second. Honorable board members and Dr. Hibbs, greetings and wish you all safe and pleasant holidays. Several Indian community members have already spoken about the importance of Diwali declared as a holiday in Marlboro Middle and Elementary schools. I'm therefore not repeating why Indian community at large feel the importance of this festival. Festival of Lights, which is equivalent to Christmas here. I would like to submit my suggestions as a benefit to our community. What is the task you have to do? Declaring Diwali as a holiday, you will make Indian community feel belonging to Marlboro community. And it will make us to celebrate Diwali with friends and families much easier, especially with children. It will not affect children education and the 180 days requirements. As a teacher and a school administrator, I know, and you also know, that that one day will be adjusted in the school calendar year, either with floating days and or with end of the year closings. So we will really appreciate your effort, and please make it happen. We have been trying it for a long time. I think this is a good time for us to please do it again. We will appreciate your help. I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our request and points of view. Thank you again.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Next up is Mrs. Robin Bornstein.
Good evening. Robin Bornstein, 24 Barnswallow Boulevard. I just had a couple of questions related to what we were talking about with the quarantine protocols and the testing of the students and whatnot. One of my questions is this blanket permission from the parents that it's for the entire school year, or would we be doing permission each time the test would need to be done? And would we be told with the testing before it's done, after it's done, or are we not going to be told at all unless there's a positive result from the test? My other question is, if we have parents that are not comfortable, for instance, going ahead and giving permission to do the testing in the school, would it be possible, because I know Rover was mentioned, would it be possible to make arrangements with Rover for the parents to take the students to do the testing that way? Because this is more for the nurses or whatnot, is what kind of training and assistance is going to be done for those that are going to be doing the test in regard to children with sensory issues or other challenges for these nose swabs? Carrie knows my children very well. She probably sees at least one of them once every single day of the school week. This is drastically different than putting a Band-Aid on a child or giving them an ice pack. I can tell you that I've had to take my children for PCR tests one too many times, and it requires assistance from me in addition to the nurse or whoever is issuing the test to get this done on my children with sensory challenges, because it's just not comfortable for them. So I'm just trying to figure out what sort of training or assistance is going to be done in regard to that. And then I had two questions related to the budget. Where is learning loss being addressed in the budget? Because I didn't see anything related to that, and I'm just trying to gather where that is in there. Air conditioning is important, but if children aren't really on par to where they're supposed to be, I don't feel that air conditioning is more important than that. And then I also noticed that asphalt repair was on the budget. Please tell me that Dugan is included in this, because that back of the building is awful. And we're doing drop-offs and pickups back there, and I'm waiting for somebody to end up with a busted tire from driving on that, because there's holes all over there that we're driving on, and I understand there are rocks and whatnot there right now, but they're not effectively covering these holes anymore. Thank you, I appreciate it.
I think I can.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, I'll jump in just very quickly. So the initial conversations would be, it's not going to be feasible to do an every time request of parents and guardians. We would never be able to handle that. It would be an insurmountable task. So the conversation was to have a permission out of the gate that parents and guardians could do, and that we would then notify parents after that a test had been completed. I think we discussed your third one about the rover thing. We're definitely going to look into that. I put training for sensory issues onto the agenda for the next time we talk. Learning loss is definitely addressed through some of the ESSER funds that we had, which wouldn't necessarily be included in the budget presentation. And I actually have no idea about Dugan's asphalt, but I'll be happy to pass that along. Well, Vinny will. Right, Vin?
Yep, so Dugan's asphalt actually is included. This will probably be one of the biggest RFPs we go out for in recent years. So them and Asher, and I believe there was another school that the back of the buildings were a concern.
Thank you, and thank you, Robin.
Okay, next up is Mrs. Angela Visotsky.
Angela Visotsky, Marlboro. As the year ends, most of us do some reflecting about the past year. First, I want to thank Mrs. Kleinow, Mrs. Sisselman, and Mrs. Portobello over at Dugan. In November, they put their own spin on Thanksgiving for one of the special education classrooms that my daughter is in. They used reading and comprehension skills to decode recipes, incorporated OT by using their muscles to use a handheld can opener and to mash potatoes. And they even worked on small groups in speech. From the pictures that they took, it seems that all the teachers and the kids were excited to learn in a non-conventional way, with no worksheets, no computerized lessons, and not even having to sit in a chair for a long period of time. I want to thank them for coming up with something new, fresh for our kids to learn. I think COVID has opened up the eyes of parents and about how their children learn at school. You've seen me up here in this microphone several times this year. I don't try to gain attention. I don't try to fight with anybody. I just want you to learn about my perspectives and how my child is. I only try to enhance my daughter's learning capabilities when I know she has a real struggle. I try to suggest new ideas and new thoughts about what she needs to our case managers and to all of our teachers. I don't ever want to be labeled as that mom who comes and other people run in the other direction when they see me. If I've overstepped at all, I apologize. And I want you to know that I really do appreciate all that you do for us and all the teachers that have worked the past year. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that this new year brings us all back refreshed. For those that are leaving the BOE, thank you for their service. For the new members of the BOE, I'm hoping that you see the change that is happening within Marlboro. More parents, as you can see, are concerned with their child's welfare, and they're not afraid to express it. The seats you have should represent the community and what they want. No politics, just an educational decision. I'm looking for more engaging conversations, not confrontations. More ideas and more inclusiveness for our kids. Thank you, good luck, and happy holidays.
Thank you, Ms. Visotsky. Happy holidays to you and your family as well.
Next up is Mrs. Annette Seward.
Hello, Annette Seward, 18 Nashua Drive. A lot of what I wanted to speak about tonight was heavily discussed. I'm fortunate enough to have a child in Marlboro Middle and a child in Dugan, and I could vouch for our nurses for the hard work that they've done and that they still call me over bumps and bruises, even though they're dealing with this mess of a world that we live in. I have a few questions tonight regarding the option for virtual school on the day that we all decided to keep our children home safe from the TikTok threat, and why we weren't given that option, although this option tonight was given to those board members that couldn't be here. I've been here personally when other board members couldn't attend, and they were only allowed to call in. And I now know personally parents that weren't able to attend tonight and speak their concerns because their children are over quarantined, and they weren't given the option tonight to sit in virtual and ask their public comments. So I feel that this, if this was thought out a little better, maybe we could have had the comments spoken about tonight, even though they weren't able to physically attend the meeting. I also have concerns about testing in school and why you won't recognize natural immunity or T-cell antibody blood work results instead of not accepting at-home test kits, because we're now seeing via the CDC that PCR testing is inaccurate. So I'm hoping that you can maybe bring to the table the at-home kits being the 94% effective that they've been proven, and giving us the permission as parents to test them instead of bringing them into a medical facility where they could potentially be exposed. I thank the board members who are exiting this year, and I wish you well. You're free, congratulations. Your time has been served. I'm grateful. I would never want to sit on the other side of this rope, so thank you for putting in the work that you do. I also would like to formally suggest that you open your mind to the new seat of president and vice president, to some fresh faces that will be joining the board instead of those that have been here for years and maybe aren't
1 minute, Mrs. Seward.
aligned with the 52% of parents that voted for the new board members, not including the other statistics of 72% of parents that voted for non-slated candidates this year. Those are the numbers of the voters. I'm not fact-checking anything. So please just keep that in mind when voting for president and vice president, that the community wants fresh faces. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much.
So I'll place the concept of the at-home kits again on the agenda for you, not a problem. I already wrote that down to do that. As far as the remote option went for last Friday, the governor took all that ability away from us. And the only time that we're supposed to do, by code now, remote learning is when kids are, when they're learning from COVID. That he took away the choice, the parent choice that existed last year. So it just doesn't exist. And I fully understood the concept of why, we had about 20% of our kids out on that Friday. And most people that contacted me, if I could, aside from my drive home, I actually tried to make phone calls to parents, because I understand the position that parents were in that moment. And they were very, and obviously what had happened in Michigan, which is heartbreaking, there's plenty of parents there that would, given the opportunity, would have kept their kids home. So in that moment, my response is, I understand if you want to keep your kids home, you're not going to hear from me about it at all for truancy or anything along those lines. You do what you need to do as a parent. I'm a parent, I get it. So, but that's why we didn't do it there, is because we're not allowed to just blanketly throw remote days at all kinds of things, regardless of whether or not we know it should all be applied now, right? And again, it's just another thing you can add to the pile that just, in a lot of ways, just doesn't make sense, that we're advocating for. You won't see us advocate for the fact that, you take it away, there's some really good options. I mean, for those of you who don't know right now, Old Middle blew up today, right? We're probably gonna have over 200 kids in quarantine. You could argue whether that's good, bad, needed, not needed, but by the rules, it's 200 out of 900 plus. It's insane. So that's the reason why. But I'll add that other piece too, to have a conversation and bring it back to the entire group.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you for your
Next up to speak, Mrs. Ashley McCormick.
Ashley McCormick, 16 Riley Road. I don't have anything prepared, but I do want to just piggyback off Annette. 72% of Marlboro voted for fresh faces, besides obviously Kathleen. Please take that into consideration, board, please. I appreciate it if you would do that when voting next month for a new president and new vice president, because we're tired of being degraded, belittled, and everything else when we walk into our meeting, and the first 20 minutes is being yelled at. We're tired of that tone. We want somebody who represents the community, and a new face would represent the community. So please, when voting next month, please take that into consideration, because we're watching now. We're here, we're watching, we're present, and you guys are all going to be up for re-election if you decide to run again, and your voting history is, we're watching. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one, Vin.
Okay, next up is Mrs. Carolyn Lee.
Hi, Carolyn Lee, 6 Prescott Drive. First, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Schatz at the Marlboro Elementary School. I contacted him with some concerns regarding physical education. He called me after hours, had an hour-long conversation with me. I don't think we hung up the phone until 5:30. Was open to suggestions I made. We came up with some ideas, and then I was happy to see an email about masks being optional during gym. I was told I was the first parent with a concern, which I know wasn't true, because as I talked to community members, I found out that most people assumed, due to the exemption, that people weren't, or that their students weren't wearing a mask, which truly was not the case. The next thing I wanted to ask or talk about, Dr. Hibbs had said, and I'm quoting some things you said, what we see is not indicative of what we should see. The COVID situation is sheer lunacy, and New Jersey is moving too slow. So you're acknowledging the current rules don't make sense. So my question is, on January 11th, when the executive order expires, what's our plan? Are we writing letters to the governor now? I know there's a new survey out. What's our plan? I think if we're making masks optional for gym, I think the majority of parents in this district would urge for masks optional throughout the whole day. Next thing, if masks are optional, that needs to be for all students, regardless of vaccination status. You're not going to get in the way of my religious beliefs. It's my child. I'm going to make the decision about it. Sorry, I have a lot. So mask optional should be for every student, regardless of vaccination status. Like I said, as you saw outside when you came in, I make my decisions for my child, not anyone else. And vaccine mandates, God forbid they do come through, we need to push that we are going to still honor religious exemptions. We're going to still not have, we're going to have a testing option for kids if be, and we're going to make masks optional. My kids shouldn't feel any different sitting in a classroom because of their medical conditions. And you'll see the impact when kids start withdrawing from schools. We'll be talking about a different budget next year. Next, the Board of Ed President and Vice President, I'm urging you to recognize the community votes and our points of view on what we think are important issues, and please consider Kathleen as our president or any new fresh faces. Lastly, I'm sick of hearing about swabbing kids. My kids have ENT issues. Why can't we do saliva tests? Explore our options. And lastly, if the nurses are overworked, how about we pick up a testing kit, test our kid at home, send a video, have a time, we all come in, test at this time. And how about we reallocate raises for admins and give stipends to the nurses to work at different hours? Or like I said, simply let the parents test their own children. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
I'll respond to what I can respond to. So
Thank you,
as far as the mask optional goes, so we're going to see what January brings, and then we'll make a decision based upon where we are. We are alarming right now. That's what I'll say, and that's not a fact that can be denied. Opinions can absolutely exist on both sides, but the rate of how this is being transmitted is not something we can discount. But that will come from most likely the governor. There's been no discussion from any roundtable that I've been a part of where that is or what that will go. The minute I know something, I will communicate that to the community. As far as vaccine mandates go, I have said publicly, and I will continue to say that, if you're a parent, you should be able to make that choice for your child. I completely agree with you, 100%. So as far as that goes, as far as a possible mandate, I also have not heard anything about a possible mandate. And again, I'll say that I believe that parents should make decisions for their kids, all right? As far as saliva goes, I will again put that back on the agenda for discussion, and then the test at home kits that's already on the discussion piece. Madam President.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hibbs.
Yep.
Vin?
Okay, next up is Mrs. Nancy Fahmy. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
Before I speak, Nancy from Deerfield Road. I wrote these comments before the discussion around quarantine, so just keep that in mind. I put a lot of time into this. I'm going to read it. Okay, I came to talk about two topics. The first is your decision on electing a Board of Education president and vice president. My goal is to urge you to select someone who will bring balance to the board, who will be willing to challenge the status quo, but also foster an environment where all viewpoints are allowed and where healthy debates can ensue. But mostly, I hope the board follows the wishes of the community, as proven by the data during the November election. After doing some quick calculations for this past November BOE election, 28,000 Marlboro residents voted. And the three candidates who won the 3-year terms got 52% of the vote. A whopping 72% of votes were away for candidates, away from the slate, away from the status quo, away from the same old, same old. These numbers speak volumes in seeing that the community demands a change and that our voices be represented by these newly elected and re-elected Board of Ed members. I hope this sends a message for anyone who is up for re-election in November that the community will continue to vote for change and disrupt the status quo to ensure our voices are heard. In addition to heeding the will of the people, I believe a president you choose should have the mental fortitude to not simply vote for every single policy that is presented to them. This person should also not have any personal conflicts that will cause them to refrain from voting on important issues. So, I urge you to look at the data. I urge you to hear what others are saying tonight and make a decision that aligns with the community's wishes and to bring forth rational change and balance back to the board. My second topic is the district's close contact quarantine rules for non-vaccinated students. As a family, we are now in our 3rd consecutive week in which one of my children has had to quarantine due to close contact. One of my daughters has been quarantined twice in 1 month.
1 minute, Mrs. Fanning.
After I added up, that's 7 days out of 23 possible days that she's been in school. We need a better solution. The policy's not working for teachers, students, parents, and not the nurses. We know that cases of COVID are not traced back to close contact at school. The idea of separating, segregating, isolating, and excluding students who are not vaccinated from attending school because of a close contact while allowing vaccinated students to remain in school is mind-boggling. Every New Jersey public school district has a sole discretion to administer their own quarantine policies. It is not a New Jersey Department of Health or a state mandate. It is a guideline. And the CDC and the president tonight changed their guidelines to allow tests to stay, allowing students to continue in school for testing. So please, let's use common sense, rational thinking, data, and science to make rational decisions. And please, let's get all of our kids back to school because they are the #1 group that have suffered the most and for the longest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vin?
Yep, sure. Next up is Mrs. Deborah Van Edem.
Deborah Van Edem, 25 McHugh Road. Regarding the daily COVID dashboard, I have 2 questions. Why are you not differentiating the positive cases by vaccinated versus unvaccinated? Why are you not tracking how many children have quarantined more than once, just as Nancy described? I know, thank you to the school nurses that spend their countless hours doing contact tracing, making phone calls, etc. The one thing that was mentioned during the presentation was the safety of being on a bus because it's controlled, they're wearing masks. I can tell you right now, there's one school bus in Asher that has been through three rounds of quarantine in the last month and a half. Also, I want to understand, we all received individual emails from our schools last week talking about the new COVID quarantine policy. Board, you just said earlier you did not want to discriminate against vaccinated versus unvaccinated. The policy that was sent out last week says if you're fully vaccinated and you are a close contact, you can return to school immediately with no test. Sorry, is that discrimination or am I missing something? Where a child who's not vaccinated must be in quarantine for how many days with a test to return? I want to leave you with a true story of my girlfriend who lives in Florida. She attended a holiday party Saturday, December 11th with 22 attendees. The host, fully vaccinated, came down with COVID the following day, and out of 12 attendees, 12 tested positive for COVID several days later. Out of the numbers, total 5 people were vaccinated, 2 were negative, 3 were positive. Vaccinated with boosters, 2 people, both ended up positive. Unvaccinated, obviously guys, this is Florida. 15 people, 8 negative, 7 positive. I like to look
1
at
minute,
data.
Mrs. Benedum.
You guys all know that. 50-50, vaccinated, unvaccinated, positive, negative. Please, please, with this new policy that you guys are coming out in January, I know you guys are stretched thin, but you cannot discriminate against vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Thank you.
I think we've addressed the second part. We have clear marching orders on that piece to treat everyone the same. And then as far as the dashboard goes, to be honest with you, that's just how we've done the dashboard. It takes a tremendous amount of time to break it out further. You know, my poor secretary could leave me. So at that point, we're tracking things internally. I don't know that at this point we're going to make any changes to the dashboard. To be honest, a lot of places aren't even doing that at all, and we kept it up because we thought it was important to show people. But we'll continue to look at all of these things, and your sentiments are not missed on me, and I can't speak for everybody else, but not missed. We agree. You know, at the end of the day, we're over quarantining, and we understand the concept of testing everybody.
Next up is Mrs. Susan Deal.
Good evening. I'm new to Marlboro. I moved from North Jersey. I followed my son, my wonderful daughter-in-law, and my grandson here. I have to tell you, I am very, very positively impressed with the Marlboro schools. My grandson started kindergarten this year. Your orientation for the parents was fantastic. My grandson comes home happy every day. What did you do? Play. I know there was a lot more to it. I know my grandson is also a very active child. My son was more placid. He would sit down and let me read a book to him. My grandson is all over the place. God bless his teacher. I want to say, after being at this meeting, I pray for you.
I'll take it.
I pray for the educators, the nurses, all the students in the schools, and I hope everybody continues to have a great year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you very much.
Prayers are appreciated.
And welcome to Marlboro.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome to Marlboro, and I'm glad your grandson is having a great experience.
Next up is Mrs. Kathleen DePasquale.
So before I begin, I'd just like to make note, you know, every time I speak, you tell me you're going to get back to me, and you haven't gotten back to me in quite a few months. Actually, the last meeting, I was invited to speak to Mr. Ballone specifically about policy, and still I'm waiting to hear some. So I really would appreciate it if you could actually answer my questions this time instead of just ignoring me. Kathleen DePasquale, I live in the Marlboro Township. First of all, the superintendent, you know, you're applauding yourself saying that you're going against the DOH, but on the other side, you're talking out of your mouth saying, now is not the time to stop collecting data and breaking the rules, and we're going to wait till January. You know, even though you're saying that these rules don't even make sense, but you need to collect more data. So one of my questions is what is being done with all this data? What specific data are you actually collecting? What do you want the data to actually tell you? And who is doing the data collection? And then who interprets this data? And for how long are you going to be recording this data? Also, does this data need to be turned over to the federal government as one of the requirements for all the money that you're accepting for whatever fundings you've collected money from? You've also mentioned that you have no idea how to deal with any of this stuff that's going on because it's all uncharted water. But then when does it come to common sense that you just say enough of this nonsense? You know, you keep saying that all these kids need to be taken care of, but do you realize how much psychological damage you're causing these kids? Where else in society are kids wearing masks like they are? Where else in society are adults forced to wear a mask? It just doesn't really make sense. And, you know, at what point are you going to address the psychological damage, including the continuing further cracking of their academic foundations? I mean, you just said that you're not even collecting data on how many kids are being quarantined, how many times. You know, that's really detrimental, aside from, you know, the last years that you said you didn't cover all the standards, which I've just recently posted on Facebook, by the way, so if anybody wants to see their own words coming out of their mouth, it's there. Now, in regards to the nurses, you said that you know the masks are working. What data are you collecting to say that you know the masks are working versus that they're not working? Also, I don't see any data. You know, what other things are you using to go across to say that the masks are working here in school, but clearly it's spreading everywhere? So again, all just nonsense at this point. Also, is mask wearing a consideration for when you're quarantining kids, which is why you think you need to have all this masking? And you also just sat here and told all these parents that you would want the vaccinations because it would be too much for you to test all the other kids. So, you know, that's not exactly good reasons that you're presenting here. And if this is a preview of what your input's going to be moving ahead when it comes to actually telling us what's going to be good for our kids, you know, I want it on record that I don't agree that these people should actually be making any of these decisions because they're talking on their own biases at this point in time. Also, you said you're for the nasal swabs. Have you guys ever considered all the ethylene oxide that's on those that are known cancer carcinogens? How many times are we going to keep introducing this to their brain? Also, the nurse said that that was the cheapest route to go. So apparently you are putting a price on these kids' heads because you've said here twice that price isn't an issue. But then we could go on and talk about the test, and it was all about, you know, what does everything cost? I'll continue later.
Thank you.
Dr. Hibbs?
Yeah, Mike, would you mind?
I just want to respond. I take exception to the fact that you're saying that I didn't get back to you, Mrs. DePasquale. We had a board meeting on October 26th. 3 days later.
Please go back and forth.
3 days later, I updated on policy.
Please no back and forth.
Please don't argue with him. It's not appropriate. Mike, you're interrupting him, so please stop. We listen to you.
This is not a back and forth, please.
Mike, go ahead, finish, please.
So 3 days later, I did send an extensive email to Mrs. DePasquale with no response back regarding policy 5511, dress and grooming, policy 2415.05, student surveys, analysis, and/or evaluations, policy 2415.01, academic standards, academic assessment, and accountability, policy 2415.03, highly qualified teachers, and finally policy 9202, civility. And that was on October 29th at 3:30 p.m. I can certainly confirm your email address over here if you'd like. I can show you.
Yeah, we can resend it. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Balone.
Ben?
Sure. Next up is Mr. John Adley.
Good evening. My name is John Adley, Peregrine Drive, Marlboro, New Jersey. I have 3 kids that either are in the Marlboro system or are moved from the Marlboro system. I also happen to have a 20 years experience in the educational testing service arena, so I think I know a thing or two about education and testing. First of all, thank you for all the board members, and thank you for, especially for those outgoing board members. You've done your duty. We appreciate it. I'm wondering, are any of the new members that have been voted in here tonight? Okay, well, congratulations if you're here. We look forward to great things from you. The first item I would like to ask you is, it breaks my heart every day in the morning when I say goodbye to my 5th grader daughter with the bag that she's carrying on her back. It is unbelievably heavy and large. And every time I ask her, do you have to take all this to school? And she says, yes. I mean, for the love of God, Korea moved all digital 8 years ago. Finland is having a project research education 8 years ago, and they're beating us. So I would implore you to just look at those elementary school kids getting into the school in the morning and how heavy they're carrying on their bags. Secondly, regarding the quarantine methods, thank you for taking a step on that. We appreciate it. You're going in the right directions. And speaking of right directions, I would like to second what I've heard earlier on here about the voting. New faces are coming. The community have spoken. The percentages are there for you to review. The community have voted you in. They expect you to listen to how the votes went. So please allow new direction to go. Otherwise, as you can see here, they're going to come every meeting, every month, and they're going to vote again in November. So please heed the voices of the voters in Marlboro. This is how they voted. Thank you very much for your time, and happy holidays to all.
Happy holidays.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays to you and your family as well.
Yep. Quick answer on the weighted bags. There's actually debate on both sides about the concept of digital versus not. So for all those that want print, there's some that want digital. For those, there's plenty of people who want no digital. So we will certainly always keep the weighted bags at the forefront. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Pratik Patel. Any Mr. or Mrs. Patel in here would like to speak? Okay. Next up is Mr. Leo Davelman.
Good evening. Just want to confirm there's 2 public comment sessions, right?
Correct, yes.
So page 2. Leo Davelman, 51 Buttonwood Drive. So I am heartened to see our school officials look at what is actually going on and focus on our own numbers, our own reality, call a spade when it comes to guidance from elsewhere. I think that that's very good that we have finally gotten there. We've talked months ago about the dangers of wasted credibility. When you choose to keep restrictions in place during a trough, when things are not bad at all, and then the effectiveness of those restrictions and compliance with those restrictions, like masks and whatnot, wanes and decreases substantially. And then when a spike comes and you really want to be able to put some controls in place, you really have nothing left in your bag. That was obvious a year ago. It is playing out today. I think everybody should look in the mirror and do some really deep soul searching from the President of the United States on down. It is a terrible idea to keep people in permanent fear. The boy who cried wolf phenomenon plays out, and our kids certainly no longer care about any safety precautions that anybody tries to implore them to take care of. What I would love to kind of get to in the next part of this is a reasonable plan that looks at our reality, that you guys can defend, but that you're also open to re-looking at as often as you need to. There's legal constraints. You have an attorney here who tells you what you cannot do. I believe the executive order says you cannot publish a rule that contradicts it. Short of publishing a rule, short of publishing anything, feel free to make the choices that are right and to re-examine them as frequently as our world changes, which it does very frequently these days. Or you stand to lose any and all credibility, whatever's left of it. I also want to implore you guys to try to means test everything you do for does it actually make sense, right? So I think Ms. Shrem made a comment earlier about kind of stopping our contact tracing and our general sense of responsibility at the doors of the school, which makes sense from a legal perspective, so I totally get where you're coming from, but just understand that it makes no sense to our kids, right? And just think about things like that everywhere. You have to be at a point where whatever rules and policies you put in place make sense. Same with this idea about going virtual. I think you went back to that well one more time tonight where you talked about, you know, the idea with who gets to go virtual and who doesn't. That's really something the governor put on us. Unless there's a jail term for disobeying him on this, I literally, who cares what the guy says? So try to do the right thing and not point to what the governor says. That's what I would implore you guys to do, and more to come in the second public comment session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dobbleman.
Okay, next up is Mrs. Carrie Jankowski.
So it's just my luck that I have laryngitis when I knew I wanted to speak, so just bear with me. Or it's an early Christmas present to my husband that I have it. So, okay. I would like to share with the public another way that I feel MTPS shines. Can you hear me okay? Okay, sorry. So I would like to take a 3-minute moment to speak about our CPAG, or Special Education Parent Advisory Group. The actual New Jersey Code states, each district board of education shall ensure that a special education parent advisory group is in place in the district to provide input to the district on issues concerning students with disabilities. Again, that's the code, but if I could paraphrase, CPAG is my safe place. Our chapter of CPAG was built and started by Kathleen Amster, mom of special education children who needed help and a safe place to be a touchstone for people who just got it. When she couldn't find one, she built it. And when you build it, they will come. Women, mothers like Kathleen, have made it possible for a woman, a mom like me, to find a place to be my weakest and yet be my very best. She paved a way for all parents with children of learning differences to find a place to seek help, guidance, acceptance, support, and love. When Kathleen became a Board of Ed member, she passed her torch to Christy Hutchings, the current facilitator of the Marlboro CPAG. Christy follows in Kathleen's footsteps to provide the same love and acceptance parents need to feel when at their most vulnerable because they are feeling at a loss to find help for their child. They welcomed me into the group as if I was meant to be there all along. The job Kathleen and now Christy have taken on is voluntary, but not an easy feat. But because it's important to them, it looks effortless. Please know that I, along with every parent that is part of your group, recognize what you have both have done and continue to do. But I actually wonder if you truly know what you have done. Because when you take on a fight and take it on long enough, your weariness can become your identity. Your battle just blends into the day. But your strength and dedication is what your CPAG parents see. They say, you reap what you sow. Well, your CPAG parents and all these beautiful children are your bounties. My hope is that people spread the word of this wonderful group.
1 minute, Mrs. Jankowski.
If you're a parent of a child with an IEP or 504 and you feel overwhelmed by the system and the process and the paperwork and the terminology and the feeling of why is school so hard for my child and what can I do to help them, please join this group. All the information about CPAG is located on the district website under special education. I encourage every case manager to hand out the CPAG contact information at every single IEP and 504 meeting. Meetings are monthly, free, on Zoom. We honor privacy. No commitment expected or necessary. Some meetings are light and informal check-ins and troubleshooting. Some months feature guest speakers to educate parents on different topics within special education, including Dr. Blair and those in our special education service department who have made appearances. To my CPAG friends, it has been my privilege getting to know and learn from you. To Kathleen Amster and Christy Hutchings, I am grateful for what you have built and sustained. You have truly made my cup runneth over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry. And thank you to CPAC for all they do.
Next up is Moisha Aran, or Moisha Grant, at 8 Sudsbury Road, Morganville. Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
All right. Good evening, board members. Dr. Hibbs, good evening. And our nurses, thank you so much for the hard work you're doing. And good evening for everyone in our beautiful Marlboro community and all the families. Well, some might not like my opinion. I believe that it's our duty as residents within our community to voice our opinion. While I respect everyone's opinions, whether you agree with me or not. My name is Moshe Grant. I live at 8 Sudbury Road over here in Marlboro. I have 3 children in the Marlboro school system, one in elementary, one in middle school, and one in high school. All are participating in all available honors programs and what have you. Now, Dr. Hibbs, I've been listening to you when you were talking, and you've mentioned something about a guidance from the New Jersey Department of Health, and that you are potentially looking to go against it to a certain extent. Now, the New Jersey Department of Health and Governor Murphy's advisory document that was put out to serve as guidance for districts as they reopen can be found on nj.gov under education, road forward, docs, and what have you. Page 14 clearly states that the schools do not need to quarantine students who are exposed while masked, vaccinated or unvaccinated. And I quote, in the K-12 indoor classroom setting, the close contact definition excludes students who are within 3 to 6 feet of an infected student, laboratory confirmed or clinically compatible illness, where both the infected student and the exposed student correctly and consistently wore well-fitted masks on the entire time, and that's the end of the quote. So, with that being said, Dr. Hibbs and the board, in my opinion, in the opinion of a substantial part of our community, you have been technically going against the guidance of the Department of Health to start with, when quarantining our students just in general. It did not state a need for quarantine and or testing if we wear masks. So if you're making our children being masked, which is something completely hideous, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but if you are doing it, you're going against the regulation that the state is giving us. And there is no regulations from out there saying that you have to quarantine us a certain way, or you don't have to do it. You have to test us, you have to vaccinate it.
1 minute, Mr. Grant.
I'll come back later with that, but my 3 children have been discriminated against by the Marlboro school system over again and again and again. My 6-year-old daughter believes that she is a risk to society when treated like an infected animal before being escorted out of the school midday because of a contact made 3 days prior, and then she's being quarantined while she's completely healthy. My 12-year-old daughter keeps stating that she's being treated as a villain by adults within the school system after contact tracing. Board members, it's a little hard for me because those kids are emotionally distressed, and not by COVID, by what we're doing over here to them. So if I'm a little shaky, it's because I'm upset and I don't want to overdo it. Board member, in my opinion, in the opinion of many other parents, this is your doing. I don't care what the state says, and I don't care what the president says. I'm paying taxes in the township.
Time is up, Mr. Grant.
I'll come back later after the break. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vinny.
I mean, the only thing and I'll turn to my ladies and thank you. I also greatly appreciate you and your expertise. The concept of the 3 to 6 feet, when we're quarantining, ladies, they're inside of the 3 feet, correct? You got to come up, Lauren. They won't be able to hear you.
So just to clarify on the guidance, so the part before that sentence that was pointed out,
is that contact tracing includes anyone within 6 feet. That sentence of in the K-12 school setting in a classroom where masks are being worn, properly fitted masks by both the infected person and the close contact, it says it excludes those within 3 to 6 feet. So we are actually following that guideline exactly, but we are not contact tracing on those who are between 3 and 6 feet, but in under 3 feet. So it doesn't mean that if they're wearing masks, they don't need to be contact traced on according to that exact guidance. It means if they were from 0 to 3 feet, but properly masked, they do not need to quarantine. If they were not wearing masks and they were 0 to 6 feet, they would need to quarantine. So just to clarify on where the 3 to 6 comes in, we are following, and that was clarified in another document that was put out by the state that was refreshed again last week. So when masks are being worn, the quarantining is only within 3 feet. So in classroom settings where masks are worn, we only quarantine within 3 feet, which I can only speak for middle, is typically like this, nobody would have to quarantine. Where masks are not being worn, lunches, snack time, it goes up to 6 feet. So the difference in when masks are worn is the spread because you're not wearing masks. So that's the difference in the 3 to 6 piece that's in there.
Yeah, and we understand your points, but we're not disregarding that piece or going against it. We're actually following it to the letter.
Thank you. Mr. Carabello, then?
Sure. Last on the list for the first public comment section is Mrs. Deanna Dutcher.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to start by saying I appreciate the discussions. Oh, Deanna Dutcher, 1 Victoria Court. Sorry, I forgot that part. I appreciate the discussions of finding a way to reduce the number of students quarantined. I also appreciate that you're recognizing that New Jersey is slow in making decisions and that we need to do better. I also hear that 1.46% of our quarantined students are testing positive, and that's encouraging information, so I appreciate that data. In regards to the test to stay option, I know all the details still have to be worked out, but I want to reinforce the importance of keeping the details of that policy equal for all students. I just wanted to ask if you had a target date in mind to implement that, the test to stay policy. And if it is going to take some time, what can we do sooner to bring back the equality amongst our students? Currently, the NJDOH guideline was recently updated to expand and include vaccinated students, is outdated, and it's not considering the new variant. And it's discriminating against our unvaccinated students. So what can we do to change that sooner?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deanna. I appreciate your question. So, heard on the equal for all students and the concept of a target date, I'm going to say January. If I give a date, then it's going to be on Facebook within seconds, and then I'll get held to that date, and it's got to be fleshed out appropriately. So I would like to see something in January that makes us look completely different, so we can have a different outcome for what we're seeing right now, which will address, I think, in some part, everyone's comments about the frustrations that you're seeing at home with quarantines. Ben.
Thank you. Vin, anyone else?
No, that was it for the first public comment section.
Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break, because some board members have requested. And just remember, the meeting is live streamed. Thank you. We will return at 9:40. Dr. Hibbs?
Have a good holiday.
Yep, I'm right here.
Thank you.
Yep. I actually gave them that. You too.
I am so hungry. I wish we got dinner. We should have picked up dinner.
I think they did get food for us.
They did, but we should have grabbed it instead of here and eat them. For not to go.
That'd be like playing Words with Friends or something.
What?
That'd be like as rude as playing Words with Friends.
Wait, don't tell me you were playing against that one.
No.
Oh, you're like, that would have been even worse.
That would've been-
That was so funny. I wanted to introduce her as a junior.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome back to the December 21st meeting of the Marlboro Board of Education. Vin, if you could just take roll call.
Roll call vote, Mrs. Amster? Mrs. Branch?
Here.
Mr. Furland?
Here.
Dr. Heller?
Here.
Mr. Schifrinson?
Here.
Mrs. Shrem?
Here.
Mrs. Salaci?
Here.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Here.
And Mrs. Wolf?
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Hibbs, we're going to move to communications.
No, ma'am.
Okay, you could just speak into the microphone so they could hear you at home.
Sorry.
Maybe not.
How about now? No, ma'am.
That's great. And I just want to say happy birthday to Jill and Dr. Hibbs.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Oh, thanks.
That's my communication.
But thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to our superintendent's report, harassment, intimidation, bullying report.
Yep, 6 incidents, Madam President.
Great, thank you. Meeting dates, Tuesday, January 4th, 2022, reorg, and Tuesday, January 18th, 2022, regular meeting. Approval of minutes resolution. Approval of minutes. Be resolved that the minutes of the following meetings be approved as submitted. October 26, 2021, regular and executive. November 16th, 2021, regular. I so move. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Kathleen. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, Vin?
Sure. Roll call vote, Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Furland?
Yes.
Dr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Schifrinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salaci?
Yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
And Mrs. Wolf?
Yes, thank you. Susie, can you please read financial and business operations matters?
Yes. The superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, transfers. 2, lists of bills. 3, secretary monthly reconciliation reports. 4, harassment, intimidation, bullying, HIV report. 5, travel. 6, approval of transportation agreement, case number 951. 7, out-of-district placement for the 21-22 school year. 8, purchase professional services. 9, amended resolution, approval of jointure with Freehold Regional High School District. 10, donation. 11, ESCNJ contract purchase. Nickerson Corporation for bleacher purchase and installation and locker installation, repair and related services for the 21-22 school year. 12, donation from Marlboro Educational Foundation. 13, home instruction. 14, NJSDA and NJDOE. 109,576 emergent and capital maintenance needs. 15, appropriation of 21-22 IDEA basic and preschool carryovers. 16, acceptance of Elementary and Secondary Education Act allocations with carryover for the 21-22 school year. 17, approval of school facilities report. 18, approval of school facilities project. 19, HSESC contract purchase, Northeastern Interior Service LLC for general construction repairs, carpentry, and related services for the 21-22 school year. 20, ED data contract purchase, John Stone supply for HVAC supplies for the 21-22 school year. 21, approval of agreement, Jump Ahead Pediatrics LLC. 22, donation. 23, donation. 24, state contract purchases. I so move.
Thank you, Susie. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Jill. Any discussion? I just want to thank donation number 10, gift of books to Dugan from Mr. and Mrs. Tatarka. What a wonderful donation to the school. Number 12, the MEF for donating $12,812.85 to enrich their curriculum. The teachers put in grants, and Miss Lisa Nabolsi was going to be here, but she was unable to attend this evening. She's the president of the MEF, and she just wanted to say thank you to everyone and have a happy and healthy new year, and to look forward to some events that will be happening for the MEF. And number 22, Marlboro Memorial Middle School PTA, thank you for the electronic school sign. It'll be great driving up and seeing that sign. And number 3, thank you to Carl's Fencing and Home Improvements for the fencing at Asher for a garden. Those are all great things. And again, thank you to the MEF and all the MEF trustees who put in lots of hours to be part of that organization. It's a great group of people, always looking for new members.
Agreed.
Okay, Vin.
Sure. Roll call vote. Mrs. Amster?
No to 14, 17, 18, and 20, and yes for everything else.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Furland?
Yes.
Dr. Sorry. Dr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Shiffrinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
I abstain to number 12, and yes.
Okay. Mrs. Strafasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
And Mrs. Wolf?
I will also abstain on number 12 and yes for everything else. Thank you, Vin. Okay, we're going to move to personnel matters. Jill, can you please read that?
Sure. The superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, retirement. 2, resignations. 3, employment certificated staff. 4, employment instructional assistants. 5, employment school aide. 6, employment secretary. 7, employment groundskeeper. 8, stipend maintenance worker. 9, employment for in-home training. 10, employment additional teaching time. 11, amended employment additional teaching time. 12, reassignment certificated staff. 13, amended curriculum LEAP coach. 14, curriculum writing social studies, revise and rewrite correct curriculum guides with NJ SLA alignment grade 3. 15, staff paid with IDEA carryover funds and IDEA ARP funds. 16, amended stipend, student info and data service manager. 17, stipend, mentor teachers. 18, defensive driving course. 19, student observations. 20, administrative internship. 21, substitute rates teachers. 22, substitute rates non-certificated positions. 23, substitute teachers. 24, substitute instructional assistants. 25, substitute secretary. 26, substitute school aides. 27, substitute bus driver. 28, substitute transportation secretaries. 29, substitute courier. 30, paid medical disability leave. 31, unpaid leaves of absence. 32, amended resolution leave dates. Let's see here. Is that it?
You got it.
All right.
That's it.
I so move.
Great, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second. Jen.
Thank you, Jen. Any discussion? I know we have comments. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll do roll call and then we'll do the comment. Mr. Balloon.
Sure. Roll call vote, Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Furland?
Yes.
Dr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Schifrinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Yes.
And Mrs. Wolf?
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Malone, I think you have a comment.
I do. Retirement comments for Teresa Amberger. For over a decade, Teresa Amberger has served as an instructional aide in the Marlboro Township schools. During her time in the district, Teresa worked at Asher Holmes and Marlboro Memorial Middle School before coming to Robertsville this year. Over her years in the district, Teresa worked with a diverse student population across all grade levels. She has touched countless lives and feels accomplished in the knowledge that she made a difference in the lives of children. She will miss her students and colleagues she has met along the way. Teresa is looking forward to her next great adventure.
Thank you to Ms. Amberger on her 13 years of service to the Marlboro Township School District, and we wish her good luck in her retirement. Thank you. And we're going to move on to Policy Development and Community Relations Matters. Kathleen, can you please read?
The superintendent of schools submits the following resolution for approval. 1, job descriptions. Be it resolved that the job descriptions listed below be hereby approved and submitted. Accounts payable assistant, payroll assistant, I so move.
Great. Do I have a second? Thank you, Randy. Any discussion on the job descriptions? Seeing none, Vin?
Sure. Roll call vote, Mr. Schifrinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Furland?
Yes.
Dr. Heller?
Yes.
Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
And Mrs. Wolf?
Yes, thank you. We're going to move on to our liaison reports. Monmouth County School Boards Association.
No, but the next meeting is February 7th.
February 7th, Jen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. New Jersey School Boards.
No, they're doing multiple workshops online and whatnot, but nothing big.
Great, thank you. Freehold Regional High School, Jill.
Just they're starting the construction on the roofing and paving at the 6 schools. That's going to start this coming summer and be hopefully completed in the summer of 2023. The focus first will be on the roofs because that's the most desperate situation. They had a college planning night with a lot of great schools in attendance, and the biggest thing also is test to stay. Their target date, ideally, hopefully, will be mid-January. But as Dr. Hibbs spoke about earlier, Dr. Sampson and Dr. Hibbs, everybody's in agreement.
We are.
Great, thank you, Jill. Marlboro Township Alliance, Steve.
Oh, nothing. There's no anything.
Thank you. Marlboro Township, just happy holidays from the township. PTA, PTO, Dr. Hibbs, Susie.
We had last meeting, it's go to the order type discussion.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, it was a good meeting. Nothing of massive consequence. Great support from PTAs and PTOs.
Great, thank you. And Marlboro Educational Foundation, I will reiterate what Lisa said. We are acknowledging the grants on behalf of the MEF. Jen and I are both trustees, and sending happy holidays and New Year's wishes. And we're currently in the middle of a fundraiser called Warm Winter Wishes, which is happening now, and it's so you could sponsor and your teacher and get a certificate sent to them to thank them for all their hard work. Teacher, administrator, nurses, anyone in the school district, to thank them for their hard work, and the funds will go to the Marlboro Educational Foundation. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to old business. Dr. Hibbs.
Vin, I'm going to hand it to Vin.
Sure. So old business. So back in June, we received preliminary discussions about what our ESSER ARP funds would be. To qualify to obtain those funds, we had to put out a safe return plan and get community feedback, which we did back in June through a survey. That same survey was needed to be sent out for a continual 6-month update of our safe return plan. So that is the survey that you received last Friday regarding some of the same questions that were involved in the June survey. This survey is used to get feedback. Currently, I believe the survey closes on the 23rd, and I believe we had about 1,700 responses. Most of the issues that are being asked to be addressed are learning loss, unmasking, unvaccinating kids, and also air conditioning was another topic that was discussed in the comment section. So we do gather all these results in the survey, and we gather together as an administration and a board, and we discuss of how this money is going to be utilized. Now, there's certain grants that have to be addressed for certain areas. I know at SRARP, 20% has to be designated to learning loss. So that has to be with supplemental programs and other, creative initiatives to address learning loss. And then there's a couple of other discretionary grants that have to be used extensively during the summer. So we're looking to possibly put in programs for additional programs to expand our ESY program, and also some after-school enrichment activities as well. So again, once we have the results of the survey, we'll share that more in detail, but right now we have 1,700 responses, and our safe return plan is on our website to review. Nothing drastically is changing from the one from June till now.
Great, thank you. One other thing in old business, I realize that we did not do our committee reports to the curriculum committee. Thank you, Mr. Malone. Do you want to just report on that?
Sure. Thank you for catching that, Mrs. Wolf, right up to the last day. So we held a curriculum committee meeting at 6 p.m. tonight. Thank you, members who were in attendance. Really, what we talked about in this meeting was data. So we have our first common assessment under our belts in ELA and math, and I'm very happy to report that our students are achieving in almost every grade level above average. We have one grade level scoring overall as average in math in grade 8, but all the other grade levels are scoring above average. In ELA, every single grade level is scoring above average based on our first common assessment. So very happy with that data that we're seeing. We also talked about as a district and at the school level, we look at school-specific trends based on standards and skills that our students have been taught and ultimately assessed, and then how in small group we remediate immediately following our common assessments. The other additional thing we talked about was New Jersey Start Strong. A little disappointing that it took so long for us to get our score reports. Those score reports will be going out to homes tomorrow in the form of what they call the ISR, the Individual Student Score Report. So we'll be sending those home tomorrow, so look out for those in the mail. And then come the regular January board meeting, I will report out on New Jersey Start Strong data in accordance with our requirements through the DOE. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Sorry about that. Okay, any other old business? New business? Yes, Ms. Branch. Trish.
I'm not sure if it's old or new or whatever, but I know that, the administration, you're living COVID every day. In a previous meeting, a community member brought up the idea of doing a COVID retrospective. I know that we're, 2 years into this. Things continue to change as the variants come on, and I know obviously in January we're going to be talking about, the new plan. But I do think it has merit that we look back, and I was thinking that maybe in May or June as we conclude the school year, to maybe for the community, a look back and what we've done and how we're changing and how we're moving forward would be a nice presentation for all of us to really understand the scope of what we've been through and how we are moving forward and how we are doing things differently. And I don't know what that's going to look like because we're not there yet, obviously, but I do think it's always good to have a moratorium to look back and to make ourselves better, and that's our core of who we are, and that's our job as board members. So I would like to suggest that we put that on the schedule.
I love that idea. Just having a lessons learned, what went right, what didn't, what we could do better. I love it.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, Trish, and thank you, Susie and Dr. Hibbs. It's a project for you. It's a good one. Okay, we're going to move to our second public comments. Same rules apply. You'll have 3 minutes, and Mr. Caravello will let you know when there's 1 minute remaining.
Sure. First up for second round is Mrs. Kathleen DePasquale.
Kathleen DePasquale, Marlboro Township. My question is for Mr. Apollone. You said the study that you had looked at said it was $150 wouldn't make a difference in the subs' pay. So instead, you decided to only give a pay increase of $10 to the subs up to $105. There are approximately 600 school districts in the state of New Jersey. So my first question, I guess, is what percentile is the Marlboro Township at for the current daily pay rates when compared to the rest of the state? You know, the idea of outsourcing your subs is very alarming. You know, you're going to go to a company to get your subs, so, you know, who's vetting this company? You even said somebody had asked, how are these subs going to be vetted? And you said, well, eventually the company will screen their subs, so I don't know what that means. And I'm sure there's got to be a policy on screening potential subs. And even though you said it's possible that if you don't like a sub, you don't have to take the sub back, again, there's more policies. You can't just get rid of a sub. Now, the problem with the subs is, first of all, you're paying this company $31.50 for each sub that you get per diem. So they're making a fortune on this. In the meantime, our subs are only getting $105, where still other districts are still going to be making more money, and the company's still making their $35. So it just makes more sense that you should keep the sub at $150 and pay it in-house and let the sub get the full money. First of all, $95 a day is quite absurd just in general for a sub salary, but that's a different story. Other things, you know, instead of keep paying your subs out of pocket, first of all, with all the new curriculums and all the abuse that could come in with the new curriculums, you're going to now outsource more local control to subs that you have no idea who you're coming in and that you could even get rid of them because you don't know the policies, because eventually they're going to screen their subs. That is just absurd. And Mr. Caravello, in terms of your S2 funding, you know, did the district send anyone to sit on the Fair Action Committee? That's one question I have for you. And with all the studies and the data that you guys have been collecting, have you ever considered that the reasons that the kids are not performing well has anything to do with all the push for the computer and the technology that's come in since you've come in 2015? You know, which is also important to note the Parks test. You know, you guys gave a lot of data that affected that SU funding. And if your students or your older students are actually floundering on all this technology-based teaching and learning, what makes you think purchasing Chromebooks and iPads for kindergartners and first grades is a good idea? Districts recently touted about being transparent in an email that also was in the same email that shamed the Parents for Parents Not Politicians slate, with whom I want to congratulate for winning the election. It's just really, there was such a terrible shaming tactic and an abuse of power on your end to actually campaign against candidates who wanted to run for a BOE position, that you used your resources and your email reach to all those parents to bash them, of which, you know, there's a district regulation called the Citizens Advisory Committee. You know, I think with all your Title I funding and the No Child Left Behind Act, there's funding that calls for parent involvement. So, you know, parents have clearly made it obvious that they want their voices heard. Okay, they voted in 3 new people.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Caravello.
Next up is Mrs. Dara Eni. Now, Mrs. Eni, you'll be speaking for yourself, correct? So you gave me a name for someone that you would like to speak for, but I do not see them on the list. And if they're not present, I think you would have to just try to squeeze it in the 3 minutes that you're allotted now.
Okay, what about the, if we don't hit the hour mark, do you still, when you ask for the end? It's somebody who was here, she wanted to speak in the, I guess, the second session, and she just emailed me what she wanted to say.
You're welcome to speak your subject in the 3 minutes.
Right, but you can't, I can't come back up at the end?
Oh, as
You need to speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry. I said I can't come back up.
To speak for yourself, you mean?
No, I'm gonna speak from, I'm gonna read what I wrote, and then after everybody else goes.
Yeah, that's fine. That's up to the board president, but that doesn't seem unreasonable.
Okay. After everybody else goes, can I come back up and read what the other person wanted to say? She had to leave because her child.
Go ahead, Derek.
Okay, I could start? Okay. As a past member, board member, I'm asking you to please finally realize that as an elected official. Your job is to represent the community, to answer to the community, not only the administration. You are the liaison between the community and the administration. It's so important that you remember the administration answers to you and you answer to the community while working with the administration. It's time to stop with the disrespect coming from the dais towards the community members who ask questions. It's time to stop reprimanding by the BOE members and the administration. This starts and stops with board leadership. Again, this starts and stops with board leadership. As you heard from the community members, based on the November 2020 election, they've really had enough. I'm asking the current BOE members to really think this through before placing your vote on the BOE Executive Board. Be the solution. Help move this board in the right direction. It's time for change, and the change is for the community and the students. You represent the students and the community. Just remember, the November 2022 elections are gonna come up quickly. And you all have great ideas and you're all here for the right reason. If you wanna stay, let's start moving things in the right direction. Thank you. Oh, and also, we have a policy about no texting from your phones on the dais. So be careful so that you don't get.
Do we have a policy? Yeah, we do.
Mr. Furlan, be careful so that you don't get ethics charges.
You got it.
Because you've been doing it all night.
You got
I
it.
mean, we're not going to call out board members, and we're certainly not going to make
Thank you
threats
very
at
much,
the dais.
Mrs. Ennie. Go on to the next person, please. Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Moishe Grant.
Well, thank you again for listening to me, and I'm sorry for the headache before, but I'll make it very, very short. I heard a few things about testing over here. So we spoke about my children. I have 3 of them. And then, again, I'll start from where I started before, where in my opinion, and this is my opinion, this is a board member's wrongdoing. It's not our government, it's not our local government, it's not our federal government. The government is here to serve us, and they're serving us through you. You're here to serve us, they're here to serve you, but we are the ones being served. So for you to come and tell us how to live our lives in a way that mentally affects our children is not a serve, it's a disservice. So I'll start with that, and then I'll go into what you proposed as testing, and I'll make it as simple as, I'm just trying to find it on my phone, the swabbing. Okay, so swabbing our children in the form of an experimental EUA PCR pharmaceutical procedure utilizing invasive swabs up their noses will not be tolerated, at least not in my family, and I cannot speak to anyone else. The testing you proposed are not New Jersey Department of Health requirement. It comes across, at least to me, and again, I might be wrong, but it comes across as nothing but a form of taking a part within the same ARP Act that you were talking about. And I'm sorry if it comes across the wrong way, but it's one of the requirements. And the requirement, interestingly enough, that provides additional funding to the school district, as the ARP Act requires each school district that receives ARP funds to develop and make publicly available on the school district's website a plan for the safe return to in-person instruction and continual services for all schools, and Marlboro apparently are already in for over $1.5 million. So I understand that most of it goes in different directions, but we cannot argue the fact that some of it is directly linked to those testings that are proposed to come across next year that I'm not interested in. Now, the same FDA approval that the PCR is testing based on the emergency use authorization is the same exact approval that the home kit is getting to produce the exact same result. And for you to come across and say that we will test your child, but you cannot go and test your own child.
1 minute, Mr. Grant.
It's just technically illegal, in my opinion. And again, I might be wrong. I'm not an attorney, all right? Now, our children Our children's vaccination status in relation to these EUA vaccines are absolutely none of anyone's business. It's simply our choice as families, asking us or our children if we or they are vaccinated in this regard is by definition, in my opinion, discrimination and pretty much an intrusion into our own privacy. Thank you so much for your time, and I love the work you're doing.
I can just very quickly, I don't believe any of that money is going to testing. We definitely didn't say that parents couldn't test kids. There will be a process, but it most likely will not be the at-home kits, but that hasn't been finalized. And as far as the vaccination cards, you absolutely do not have to supply that in any way, shape, or form. That was absolutely voluntary. And if you don't want to, no problem. We respect that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vin.
Next up, I cannot read the name, but the address is 3 Kate Court. Is anybody residing at 3 Kate Court that would like to speak? Next up is Virender Gupa, 17 Churchill. Nope. Next up is Amin Hana, 7 Egret Lane. Nope, a lot of people may have left. Next up is Mr. Leo Davelman.
Leo Davelman, 51 Buttonwood Drive. So the room mostly cleared out, which actually is probably a good thing because I often speak to folks sitting behind me. This is for you guys, for the board members today, most specifically, as these comments should be. I want to ask you, and not to answer, more a question to ponder. I want you to ask yourselves, what do you guys want to be working on next year? What do you want this board to feel like and to be like all of next year and beyond, but focusing on just 1 year? The 2-3 months leading up to the last election are still fresh at everybody's mind, right? Nobody enjoyed that. The folks who won that election did not enjoy that. All of us on the community side did not enjoy that. I know, without hearing you say it, that you guys didn't enjoy it either. That was not fun. Nobody wants to do that anymore. Want to do some productive things. I would love to be talking to you guys, contrary to an educational expert who was up here earlier, about how we need more textbooks. Maybe not the big heavy ones, they can be digital, but structured with chapters and clear references for parents and tutors, et cetera, et cetera. I'd love to do some of that stuff next year. I'd love to get somewhere on these questions of air conditioning, where it actually happens. All sorts of wonderful things we talked about. But we have a serious problem of trust that we've talked about many times, and I want to implore you guys, as you plan your January 4th or 7th or whatever it is rework meeting, to consider heavily what implications there are of the choice you're going to have to make. I know this is a choice mostly for you. Whoever is going to be the president of the board is somebody who's going to impact you more than anybody else. So I know that this is super important to you guys. But please consider that one of the key roles of the president of the board is communication with the community. You don't allow anybody else to openly communicate with the community. It's just that one person. And I think President Robin Wolf would agree that for all the really important things she's done over her tenure as president, the communication with the community was an unmitigated disaster. The constant chastising of everybody who she doesn't agree with is something that cannot continue. You need to make sure that whoever you vote for can actually speak politely and respectfully to people that they disagree with. Now, I very strongly would like to urge you to elect Kathleen Amster as president because she has experience, she's worked with you guys, and at the same time she has the trust of the community. If that doesn't pan out, please consider finding a compromise candidate. There's plenty of folks at this dais who may not even want to do the job. but would still do a job in a compassionate and understanding way that would not carry forward business as usual. There can be no business as usual. There cannot be, go along to get along. That can never happen again. And I also have
Time
to
is
say...
up, Mr. Dievelman.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Doppelman.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think the characterization is just, I don't know that I have words for it. We are all individuals. We all care about what we do. No one goes along to get along. If that's your perception, you're allowed to have that perception, but I don't think any of the board members feel that that's what we come and do here in our service to the community. We are all very passionate, and there's a ton of respect. And I would like to thank you, Robin, for being a great president. It's a tough position to be there, to be the target. And, we're all different people. We all handle it differently. But I would like to thank you, Robin, because it's a tough position that you're in. And I understand that that community member feels that way, and we all have rights to our feelings. But I want to tell you that I thank you for your service, Robin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I do as well. Absolutely, Robin.
Same, Robin. Thank you.
Yes, Robin, thanks for your service. You've done so much.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Robin, I hate this thing.
I'm sorry?
Robin, you've done a lot, and unfortunately, you've gotten the brunt of it, and I apologize for that for other people. You have done a fantastic job, and that's my opinion. Steve, I didn't get an opportunity. You've done so much as a principal in this community, as a board member. You've done an amazing job, and you're going to be surely missed. And Paul, for the time that you were on the board, you definitely had a great impact and great ideas. And I welcome all the new members that are coming on. I really look forward to having them be a part of this small community that's the Board of Ed. So that's my words.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you.
Can I also just say too that there's been a lot of conversation, it feels like, us against the new members coming on. I also want to dissuade that perception, because I'm excited to work with the new members, and when this next board takes place in January, the current members, the new members, we're all here for the same reason. And I would like to think that that we're all going to come with the same passion and knowledge that we were all elected by all members of the community. So, this is not us, them, this is together, united, are much stronger. And I know that that's what I want. That's what I want my next year to be: united, progressive, proactive, making a positive change and difference. And so I just want to say that as we end this year, that's what I'm looking forward to next year, and I'm excited for everybody. That's it.
Thank you, Trish.
Sure.
Okay, Vin?
Sure. Next up to speak is Mrs. Carolyn Lee.
Again, Carolyn Lee, Prescott Drive. I just wanted to continue with what I was saying before. I had asked a question about June 11th, and Dr. Hibbs responded that he had no idea what's going on. I know you don't have a crystal ball. Maybe it was misunderstood the way I was asking. My question is not what will happen, but what are our plans for what we're trying to make happen? Are you going to write letters to the governor? How are you going to look at that new survey? I have to say, I did appreciate the new survey. That wasn't just 2 questions, yes or no, as in sometimes I might want my kids to wear a mask, sometimes I won't, but there wasn't that option. Now, the new survey, how is that going to be used is a question. I know we're going against the DOE and the DOH with test to stay. I really think most of the community members would say that we should go against with more. Let's start being a leading district. Let's have other districts in our state look at us. Also, we know masks don't work. If you don't believe me, I could provide you with a ton of data, and I could provide you with an anecdotal story. My husband was out of work from a car accident, didn't go anywhere, went for an MRI, got COVID, my whole family got it, wearing a mask in a hospital. So my whole family ended up being quarantined, and my kids now have natural antibodies. I want to, I guess, discuss that. We could do that at a later time, but with the masks, being that they don't work, there's more issues coming from them. Speech issues. Children don't know how to pronounce things. The nurses are overworked now. What's going to happen when we have all these kids in speech therapy? So we need to think about those things. We're in unprecedented times. I urge you to go beyond the board for looking for ideas. Maybe reach out to community members with ideas such as how we could test so parents can test their own children. Also talking about saliva testing. There's a way to do it. We could have parents sign up. I have plenty of ideas. I'm sure I could share them, and other people who are advocating for their children would be willing to share them as well. As far as the letter for who, asking who was vaccinated, I know you said being vaccinated is voluntary, but if we're not saying anything, we're considered unvaccinated. So if there's going to be different sets of quarantine policies, that's, again, discriminatory. It doesn't matter. We all know there's breakthrough cases. When we had COVID, my parents who were near us, they were vaccinated, they had it. And the last thing I want to address was Robin had brought up at the beginning of the meeting the disrespect she saw on Facebook and said if your kids only behave that way. The disrespect I just witnessed about the cell phone back and forth, you know, that's the same situation as if a teacher asked the kid to stop texting and the kid just shrugged. I get it, some of you need to send a text, we all have families at home, but to text the entire meeting and then when you get called out on it, shrug, that's why people voted this way, because the way we're getting treated from the board members, that's why the community is voting. So again, when you vote for a new president, that needs to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin.
Next up is Mrs. Dara Ennie.
Mark, what, is she speaking for herself? I couldn't hear before.
No. Yes, Mrs. Ennie, just please state who you're speaking for.
Our policy says that no participant may speak more than once until all others have been heard. That contemplates the speaker speaking on behalf of his or herself. If you're speaking for somebody else, my advice is that we do not permit that. Most public entities that I'm aware of do not permit people to speak for folks who are not here for a couple reasons. A, we don't know that the person in fact really is speaking, number one, and number two, there's no limit. Somebody can get up here and read 20 statements from 20 people who aren't in attendance, and I think it creates a little bit of a slippery slope. So again, it's at the discretion of the board president. That's my advice, though.
I'm just reading an email. I'm just going to read it. I'm not putting my
It's
opinion
up.
in it.
I just gave my opinion. It's up to the board president because of the concerns that I just read.
I'm sure if it was
mentioned.
somebody else, it would be read, because I've been at many meetings where people have read emails from other people. Am I correct, Mr. Dableman? Yes. People have read from Mr. Dableman many times when he couldn't make it here. I am reading for Rosanna Dunn.
It's not up to me.
Excuse me?
It's up to the board president, the presiding officer.
Robin, may I please read an email from Rosanna Dunn, who had to leave the meeting tonight?
What is her address so that we have that on record?
She lives in Marlboro.
No, I understand, but do you have her address so that we can put that on the record?
Does anybody have Rosanna's? 19 Meadow Lane.
Just allow her to read it. And that will be,
The Board of Ed will soon elect itself a new president. I'm using she instead of I, as a member of the community who voted in the last election and making, sorry about the grammar, and making a final appeal to board members to vote for one of the newly elected board members. The community wants someone in the role of president who is aligned with the community's values and respects the community's concerns. The community spoke volumes in the last election, and for those board members who are not completely aware of the community's vote tallies and their significance, here they are. 72% of the community voted against the incumbents and his running mates that we consider the slate. That would be Mr. Furlan, Mr. McCauley, and Ms. Lawrence. 72% of the community did not vote for this slate. Those 3 Board of Ed candidates with the mayor's unspoken political endorsement placed their signs alongside the mayor's incumbent council slate. The mayor's council also lost their seats to new fresh faces. This is what the community wants, fresh new faces. 72% of the community voted for the BOE candidates other than the ones on that slate, and instead cast their votes for Ms. Amster, Ms. Risotto, and Mr. Paterno, and Angelo and Valentina. This is what the community wants, fresh new faces. 52% out of the 8 candidates running for a 3-year term. 3 candidates took a whopping 82% over all those candidates. 3 candidates took more than the other 5 combined. This is what the community wants. Remember those numbers when choosing your Board of Ed president in January and elect board members, 72% and 52%, and decide whether you're going to vote for a candidate that the community overwhelmingly voted for. You must choose who you stand with and stand for and represent whether you are with 72% of the community or against them. As an elected official, you should stand with the community and stand up for the community. And this is what the majority and the community wants from you now. Jen, Jill, Susie, are you going to stand with this community? 72% of us are waiting and watching.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Caravello.
Sure, last is Mrs. Colby-Vysotsky. Okay.
It's up to the board president.
There's nothing in the policy that says I cannot speak again.
It's up, I'm good. It's up to the board president whether you're permitted to speak again. Okay?
Fine, thank you.
This microphone is moving shorter and shorter. For taller people, it's not easy. Angela Colby-Vysotsky, Marlboro. First, I want to echo what was said about CPEG. To me, as a child with a special needs student, that's considered my second family within the community. To be able to speak to them, find out ideas, and learn from them, it's something that's really important, and I wish more people would become CPEG members. Second, I also would like you to consider some other options related to the testing plan that you're going to have. As a child with special needs, a nasal swab is not the greatest thing to do for them. Having mental breakdowns, crying, that is not a good way of testing. So if you could consider some other kind of option, that would be really appreciated for our special needs kids. Related to the curriculum you had talked about, I'm assuming that is all for the general education stats. Special education kids don't get common assessments. So I would like to see what kind of benchmark or where they are with your statistics that you're giving out every month and where they are falling, because I know that they are not at this 100%, 50% mark that you think everybody else is doing so great with the curriculum. And then to the BOE, I would like to have a president or a vice president who's able to vote on all of the matters that are run by the BOE. Someone who does not have to abstain on voting issues because of any kind of conflict of interest. That conflict of interest is only contributing to a quorum and not allowing the team to come to any kind of decision. Someone who will work with the superintendent to identify the district needs, but not be afraid to stand up and make some kind of final determination on priorities. Someone who lives within the community, an ordinary, nonpartisan voting citizen, someone who will engage in conversation, someone who's empathetic to parents and children, especially our special education community. Someone who can maintain a certain level of decorum at the meetings, maintain a tone and courtesy of civility, someone who's a vocal leader.
1 minute, Mrs. Vysotsky.
And someone who can investigate issues that the community brings up and is able to follow up on the questions and make sure everybody's voice is heard. Thank you. Again, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Mrs. DePasquale?
I believe that you have already spoken 2 times.
Yeah.
We still have
You've
an
already
executive-
granted me permission prior to her talking. Kathleen DePasquale, I live in the Marlboro Township.
Is that the case, Ms. Wolf, that you already granted permission?
I don't know what happened there, I think.
You said yes before Angie started speaking that I can speak. The board council actually asked for you to confirm, and you said that was okay, I could speak again. Are you changing your mind?
No,
because you know who it is?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Of course, very convenient. Kathleen DePasquale, Marlboro Township. I just want to make a note, just kind of continuing on with the subs. Ms. Strafacci before had said that the teachers are stretched out already. So, you know, why aren't you hiring new teachers and entice your actual subs that you have now by increasing their pay to $150 instead of paying $31.05 to an outside agency and only paying the subs $105? Aside from that, also wondering if these subs are going to have some unconscious bias training that Ms. Strafacci's husband actually advocated for in the October meeting. So, you know, unconscious bias training, to be honest with you, is it's racism. So you're teaching your teachers that they're racist, so now they can promote the new agenda in the curriculum. So just curious to know whether or not the subs are going to get that training, the same as the teachers are going to get that training. Also, I'd like to bring up District Regulation 9140, the Citizens Advisory Committee, asking the board to actually seriously discuss creating these parent committees, which again, by Title I funding and No Child Be Left Behind, there's supposed to be some meetings going on. You know, we're constantly being shamed as parents as talking on social media, which is our only avenue to speak publicly because we are continuously shut down here or, you know, humiliated or shamed by the board president several times, and the superintendent coming through emails, again, parents, not politicians. So, you know, I think it's time that you guys start really listening to your community, which also comes into tail on who your president is going to be and your vice president. And quite honestly, anybody who was supported by the mayor, who is backing a national conference about pushing CRT into the curriculums, shouldn't be supported because, you know, you have direct control of who sits on your curriculum committees. So just to note that our entire town council went red. And this is only the beginning, so I would suggest if you'd like to keep your positions, you actually listen to the community that keeps speaking to you and offer them an opportunity to have an open Q&A with the superintendent and yourselves, as opposed to holding us back on policy, 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 because that's all you keep talking about. You use your policies against your people. So, you know, one last question, actually not a last question. Just want to note you haven't addressed any of my new questions tonight other than an email response. And I was also referring to comments that were made on the August meeting as well that you've never gotten back to me, and in the April meeting, and I believe it was the July meeting, but might not be right with that one. And last but not least, you know, I'm pleading with the board. If you guys can't open your eyes and see that this is all political nonsense, and you are damaging these kids so much academically, emotionally, physically, you're put a shame to all of you, because this is nonsense. You know these rules make no sense. You have the authority as a local power to say no to all this. But unfortunately, you accepted a whole bunch of money that said, no, you can't do those things. But, you know, you report on yourself for everything. So who's going to know if you don't report on yourself for things that are breaking the rules or going against the DOH?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas.
Oh, same to you and your family. Happy holidays.
Thanks.
Mrs. Mendez?
Val Mendez, Sandberg Drive. I just want to thank you all for everything you do throughout the year. I did want to take a moment, though, to echo Ms. Jankowski's comments on CPAG. Thank you, Kathleen, for starting the program. I'm new there. My son has an IEP, and it's been nothing but helpful. You guys give great advice, tips, and things that I can just use to help him. I do want to shout out Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Curvin. They work here in Marlboro Memorial. they've done nothing but provide endless support for my son, who's really struggling lately, especially with math. So Kathleen, you hear the community, and I, as somebody who ran for the board, and I'm more than okay with, you know, not winning last year. We'll see what happens next year. But either way, Kathleen, I thank you. I was rooting for you all along, Christina and Aldo, and everybody else that ran. You know, I know it was a tough time for all of us, so thank you. I do want to say, though, that when we speak about the community, I'm just a little emotional. My son had a little bit of a rough day, so it's kind of coming out. But for the people in the community, it was important for me and other members that were running that we listen to people that were in the town. I'm not saying that people do or don't. I'm speaking for what I heard when I spoke to fellow community members and parents. And so I ask that when you're voting for a president, I ask that we think about Kathleen, who has done nothing but support people in the community. And I can't thank you enough for the endless support that you've given me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for second public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Executive session resolution. Be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, the Marlboro Township Board of Education shall conduct a closed executive session pursuant to the exception prescribed by NJSA 10:4-12 for the purpose of discussing matter of attorney-client privilege, personnel matters. It is anticipated that the length of time of this executive session will be 30 minutes and action will not be taken in public after the executive session. Be it further resolved that the minutes of the executive session will be released when the need for confidentiality in accordance with NJSA 10:4-12 no longer applies. So I have a motion to go into executive. Jill, thank you. All in favor?
Need a second.
Aye. Anyone
Give me a
opposed?
second. Jen, give me a second. I'll be second. Jen second. Jen second.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Trish and Steve, just stay on.